Hey, everybody, it's your old pal Tom here on the Tom Gulley Show. Let me tell you about Ted Bundy. You know, we did a show on Charles Manson recently, and I guarantee you, once we're done telling you about Ted Bundy, you're going to say to yourself, Charles Manson's not that bad of a guy. Because Ted Bundy was like charming and decent looking and all that stuff, but he was awful. Not just in what he did, which, believe me, is way more awful than you think, but the number of times he did it. Super awful. Yeah. He wasn't a very nice man. I think it's safe to say that. So we're going to tell you the story of Ted Bundy that went on for a long time and longer than it should have, and all the twists and turns of how he was able to fool people. His whole doing awful things was fooling people. And it even became an element. The way he did things became an element of Silence of the Lambs. You think that just came out of nowhere? No, it didn't. Well, did you help me with my couch? Yeah, that guy, he was doing Ted Bundy things. So we're going to tell you all of that. Rich Giraffe's here. He says, I was just unsuccessfully looking for something to watch. Save me, Tom. I will save you. I will. When I tell you all about the awfulness of Ted Bundy. Team Brittany, R.I.P. to the 30 known victims of Bundy. Oh, yeah. Everybody probably thinks, oh, yeah, he just killed a couple, but no. No. Don't be spoiling my chat. You just killed all of my drama. Come on. I'm kidding. You're going to find out anyway. Some people may already know. But, Ted Bundy's one of those guys, you hear the name and you think, oh, bad killer guy, whatever. No. And the other guy, the Green River Killer, nobody even really knows his. Well, I do because I'm weird, but nobody even knows his name. And he's equally as bad. In fact, for a while, they mistook one from the other. And then after they got Bundy, they asked him questions about the Green River Killer. That's what they do, And Ted Bundy, man, he went at it a lot while he was doing it. In other words, he had these periods where he would do a whole bunch of it. And here's the other thing about Ted Bundy, and I didn't mean to get into too much of this because I got another topic I want to talk about real quick, but Ted Bundy was articulate enough and intelligent enough that he worked his way into the upper echelons of politics and stuff, which we'll get to as well. And I was just kidding, Team Brittany. I don't give a damn. Team Brittany's here. See, this is what I get for breaking my long-standing rule of addressing the chat before the show begins, which I shouldn't do. It's all Rich Giraffe's fault. But what I really like to say is, how about the United States national team, huh? Bet you Paraguay didn't see that coming. Destroyed them. And I'm not going to say, look, let's just temper our expectations. But what I will say is it's now obvious that the United States can play as a team at a very high level and all that stuff. And it was very nice to see coming right out of the gate. And yeah. So I had a really great night last night because I got to watch the United States dismantle Paraguay, and hopefully shut up some of these British people that have come over here, and all they do is bitch and moan and whine. That's what they do. Everything costs so much. Oh, you can't walk from your hotel to the stadium. Oh. Hey, yeah, I got a hot news flash for you. The United States is not England. No, I'm serious. We're not where you're from. If you want to be in a place like where you're from, go back to where you're from. Also, until you guys can beat us in a World Cup match, which you never in your history have done. You've had 3 chances. All 3 times we've had to sit and listen to how you're so much better and you're going to do this and you're going to do that and we don't stand a chance. And then, well, the first time we whipped your ass and the next 2 times we tied you. Till you can beat us, shut up. And the term soccer that you like to make fun of. First of all, we're not the only one that uses it. Canada and Australia use it. Second of all, who invented the term soccer? You did. Yes, you British people invented that term. Oh, by the way, Sky Sports, your biggest, if not one of your biggest, sports networks like ESPN, they've had a show called Soccer Saturday. Since 1992, did you dirty your drawers over that? Shut up. If you want to come here and enjoy everything, and by the way, I think it's hilarious, absolutely hilarious, that when we go to Europe, we go to the Eiffel Tower, we go to the Louvre, we go to Big Ben, we go to, you know where we go. These Europeans, they come here, you know the first place they go to? Taco Bell. Buc-ee's, Chick-fil-A. And then they lose their minds with, oh my God, Waffle House, did you taste this biscuits and gravy? Oh my Lord, it's to die for. That's why when you have friends come back from Europe, they're like, oh, I got clean, I lost weight. Yeah, because, you don't want to eat leprechaun's face pie or whatever they're serving over there, But it is nice. I do like that some of them are coming over here and going, it's not like I thought it would be. Everyone's so polite and it's clean and it's... Yeah. But most of them, especially the British, shut up. Shut up. I don't like it. It's, I went to the game at $18 for a beer and have you never been to a major sporting event before? Part of the reason they make them $18 a beer is you drunkards can't afford to get so drunk that you'll riot or pee yourself. That's why we do that. It's not a place to get smashed. Get smashed before you arrive and after you leave. At the game, not the place. Anyway, it was great to see the USA destroy the other team last night. Very excited about that. We'll play again a week from today against the Socceroos of Australia. But for right now, let's concentrate on a horrifying serial killer. For my money, one of the worst. Shall we? Play a little song here. Just like the United States stole the show last night, I'm going to play Tom Gulley Steals the Show. And then, let me tell you about Ted. Oh, God, he's awful. He's so awful. Let me tell you about Ted Bundy.
take control, watch it glow, catch that spark, feel the flow. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Take our hearts, steal our souls, take our shine, lose control. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Take the beat, move your feet, steal the dark, feel the heat. Turn it up, lose control. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Take our hearts, steal our souls, take our shine, lose control. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Take the tunes, steal the deck. Take the mix, no respect. Take the needle, steal the groove. Take them back to the radio booth. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Take our shine, lose control. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Take our shine, lose control. Take our hearts, steal our souls. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show. Tom Gulley's gonna steal the show.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What is shaking? Let me tell you about Ted Bundy. Hey, guess what? He's really awful. I mean, he's so awful. He is really, really, really awful. Just when you think maybe he's not that, no, he's really awful. He sucks. He totally sucks. Hey, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those free things that can help us out with the algorithm, the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing algorithm. Plus, if you're watching us live, we have the Super Chats, the memberships, and the gifted memberships. And we make a little dough that way, a little something for the effort. We haven't in a while. Our goal every single episode is any amount of money. Any amount of money. And then if you're watching us on demand on YouTube or listening to us on demand on one of the 20 or 30 podcast platforms we're on, you can go to our YouTube description and there's the PayPal link. The PayPal where you give the most, I get the most. We cut the middleman out completely. And then also, hey, there's the TomGulleyShow.com. That's where our merchandise store is. You get a nice thing. I get $2 or $3. I mark it up $2 or $3, and you get a nice thing. You get a clock, you get a 20-ounce mug, you get a long sleeve, short sleeve T-shirts in multiple colors for men and women. And as we established on the last show, because I didn't know, the women's version just means there's more room for, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying about the oh my gosh, see? And then there's Terry Nee right there with a 99-cent super sticker, shattering our any amount of money. And also because Terry thinks that's funny. And it is, actually. So it'd be a lot less funny if it was less than 99 cents. But and Team Brittany has gifted a Tom Gulley Show membership. So she's like Fonzie. I don't know who got it. You guys can tell me. A lot of times people who hate my guts get the gifted membership. Team Brittany, it looks like, gifted a membership to herself, which is hilarious. So we're already just kicking ass here. Anyway, all that stuff is nice and it helps us out and whatnot. What was I going to say? I had a thing I was going to say. I can't remember what it is now. I know what it is. A little bit later into the show, maybe in 20 minutes or so, I will pin the link in the chat here so that if somebody wants to call in or whatever, they can do that. And so, yeah, that'll be great. That'll be absolutely great. Let's remove that. Let's put this here. There we go. And then let's get to our chat room here a little bit. Rich Giraffe said, I was just unsuccessfully looking for something to watch. Save me, Tom. I'm doing my best, brother. And an emoji of beers clanking. Team Brittany's talking about the victims of Ted Bundy. We'll get into more of that later. People saying hi. We do have the most cheerful chat room on the internet as verified by independent sources. See, people saying hi. Oh, come on. StreamYard. Team Brittany, everything is Rich's fault. Yes, today it is. Terry Nee, darn foreigners. We are inundated with foreigners. 48 teams, so 47, not counting our own. Terry Nee says, oh dear, the bloody lynx of this walk is killing me pups. Can you carry me, mate? You know, here's the thing. The Scottish don't seem to be complaining. The Scottish are just like, where's beer? The Scottish, the planes ran out of beer when they were on the flight over. They just want to party, you know. And I saw some of the Scots went to that, because they're in Boston. Their first match is in Boston. And they went to the Cheers bar, and they were singing the song. So the Cheers bar, like, bartenders got them all to go, you know, making your way, takes everything you got. And they all sang that part, and then nobody knew the second line. And I also saw a Boston cop, an older dude, juggling a soccer ball, playing what the British call keepy-uppy. And he did it really well. And when he got done, he was mobbed, because there was a circle of mobbed by Scottish people. And I don't think Scottish people understand. The police here don't like being touched in the United States. But he didn't mind. He went with it. They're being gobsmacked. Blimey. Terry Nee's in the spirit of things. Bloody hell. They're taking the piss. Yeah, it's the wind up. They're taking the piss. Bloody hell, you cantankerous chap. Terry Nee's called crazy today. Let's see. Yes, Team Brittany, that's the thing about Ted Bundy. He's so handsome. Ted Bundy is so handsome. He's so handsome. Look at him. He's just so handsome. Terry Nee, he was great and Married with Children. I'm sure that Rich Giraffe is talking about our song, You Have Soul. I do have soul. One thing I do have to say about Bundy is I wish his brain was studied before he was executed. Team Brittany's right. You know what Ted Bundy had on the morning of his execution for breakfast? Just a little juice. That'll be really funny later. Terry Nee with some great emojis. Rich Giraffe acknowledging our piano solo. Toe tapping, fire. Bobby Rigbit, comics goalie. I don't know who that is. Debut. Sure, I don't know what that is. Hey, Tom. Hey, back to you. Team Brittany did gift that membership. That's pretty awesome. H2BH. We got an H2BH in the house. Did I seriously just gift a gift? Did you really gift yourself? Yeah, she got it. That's pretty great. Uncle Fatty is here. All hail the almighty algorithm and his cousin, Sam Squatch. Gully Gone Wild. Team Brittany says, dang it. Now my connection is messing with me. It's Ted from the grave. Terry Nee, is that picture really you? Let me see here, because let's see if they don't do this. Yeah, Team Brittany was like in normal skivvies. See how? Let me just show you. Team Brittany was in normal skivvies earlier. Oh, that was Team Brittany. That wasn't Terry Nee, but that's funny. See how she's in normal skivvies there, and then later she gifted herself a membership, and now she's got the little doodad there on the side. This is Nun. Oh, Nun. I don't know why my name is now some username I made when I was 10. It's the Butcher because I liked Left for Dead. Oh, the Butcher. Or I thought it was you were trying to be debaucher. Let's get into this. We got to get into this. We've been meandering a long way. Okay. Let's get into this. Let me tell you about this creep. God, is he creep. Take it away, Tom. Thank you. Thank you. It's the thing about Ted Bundy you got to get off the top of the thing here. Remember when there was another awful person we had, and then Charles Manson himself, who wasn't really born Charles Manson. And then the other person wasn't born by there. And Ted Bundy is the same. Now, we know him as Ted Bundy, Theodore Robert Bundy. But his original name was Cowell. Okay, and I'll get into why and all that in a second here. But born in November of 1946, we'll get into when he died a little later, because there's a whole story behind that. It's kooky. And, yeah. He was a serial killer, was old Ted. And he was known for the kidnapping and the S-A-ing. There's a word that rhymes with grape that I could say, but I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting dinged. He did bad things. And then unalived dozens of young women. And it's so weird because he did this in 1974. He did this in 1975, and he did this in 1978. Now, we don't know about some other years and some other people, and there's some people they think, but they don't know. And the reason they think that they don't know is that at a certain point, Ted really confessed to a lot of stuff. I mean, he confessed. There's one confession that is so creepy. And it was this couple that were out walking, and they both got freaked out because this guy was kind of following them. So they went off of this trail they were on into some bushes. This is documented. And they laid down in these bushes. And the guy that was following them in this heavy sort of vegetation out in the edges of the woods of a park. And this guy was like feet away from them, looking, and couldn't find him. And they mentioned this to the police, and Ted brought it up before the police brought it up. One time I was at this place, and I saw this couple, and I was going to do bad things. And I went and I looked, and the police goes, was that on this day at this park? He goes, yeah. And he goes, yeah, some people reported that. He goes, yeah, well, they're lucky because I definitely would have. You know what I mean? All right. Ted had a different way of doing things, and you'll recognize this from Silence of the Lambs, okay? He would typically have on a fake cast or something, hand or leg, and need assistance. Hey, can you help me out over here? I got a box, or can you open this door, or whatever. And then they'd come over, and he would subdue them, lure them into the vehicle, and then he would bludgeon them unconscious. He was very big into bludgeoning. And in fact, that was a thing he enjoyed doing. You know, he didn't just bludgeon them to subdue them. He bludgeoned them because he liked bludgeoning them. And that's probably the most I've used the term bludgeon in one small. He also sometimes would make himself out to be an authority figure, like a cop or the person who ran a thing or something like that. But and then he would restrain them with handcuffs, and he would take them to a remote place, and then he would essay and unalive. And frequently visit the bodies after they were unalive and do things to them. Because he's that awful. Team Brittany is quite correct, to say the least there, Uncle Fatty. Psycho. Team Brittany is quite correct. If anyone hasn't seen the Netflix movie, it's pretty good and accurate. And then, well, we'll get to something else very quickly here, as a matter of fact. So, but the thing where he would visit them when they weren't alive, wherever he had left them, and do things to them that normally you would do on a honeymoon night, you know what I'm saying? And then that's even worse. Yeah. He was also a big-time burglar. So, oh, look, Wanda's here. Wanda, who the other day in this chat room just goes first and then gone. She's not here anymore. And I did a bunch of things thinking she was still here. And I made note of it at the time that the next time she came, because she flies off and leaves at the drop of a hat, like you can't imagine. I even said the next time she's here, she's going to be chastised for that. Because I did like 3 elaborate and difficult things to do for her benefit and gone. Yeah. Yeah. At least he didn't eat them. Well, that we know of. No worries. Let me put my dinner away. Yeah. I was there the whole time. Yeah, sure you were. What? Laugh. No, you weren't. Chastisement complete. Yeah, it is complete. Of all of the things. No, you. Well, then tell me what the things were. You weren't there for any of them. Let's get into this a little bit. I would like to say, though, one of the weird things, and by the way, he's super awful, but there's weird things about him that are just weird in like really general terms. You can't put it into words because you weren't here. Yeah. The people from a certain group of people, they have a really rough time with the truth. They really do. Here's the thing about Ted. You see this chick here? Here. That chick there is named Anne Rule. And Anne Rule, right there, Anne Rule. That gal there, a famous crime author, true crime, and I think she's written some actual fiction crime. Well, she actually worked with him at this like hotline. Okay, so she knew personally, talked to him, went out to dinner, rides home, things like that. And she characterized him as a sadistic sociopath who took pleasure from another human's pain and the control he had over him to the point of death. And, of course, as we know, even after. He once described himself. Ted described himself this way. I'm not describing him this way. He described himself as the most cold-hearted son of a bitch you'll ever meet. And his defense attorney agreed with that, by the way. And she wrote that Ted was the very definition of heartless evil. Evil. That crazy Wanda. She's Quite a songbird, but really more known for her punctuation. But are we sure he's guilty? He's so handsome and all. Yeah, right. Anne Rule. He has the nature of a troll, it seems. I could have changed him. Schadenfreude, taking pleasure in others' pain. Boy, he sure did. So Ted Bundy there was born Theodore Robert Cowell. Cowell was his first name. On November 24th, 1946, to Eleanor Louise Cowell at... And this is something that's going to play a part in a lot of things. And psychologically, this is a trait that many serial unalivers possess. I'll hold that for a second. Team Brittany says, highly recommend her book about this, by the way. Awesome. Very interesting. It's called The Stranger Beside Me. And it is absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Because even after she found out all the stuff he did, and in the book goes into that, her finding out about it, because they were friends. She knew he would never hurt her. Weirdly. It's very strange. Anyway, he was born at, get ready for it, drum roll please, the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont. Yeah. His biological father's identity has never been confirmed. His original birth certificate apparently assigns paternity to a salesman and U.S. Air Force veteran named Lloyd Marshall. The copy of it listed his father is unknown. Louise, his mother, claims she met a war veteran named Jack Worthington. Her story's all over the place. She's a real prize, by the way, as I'll tell you in a minute here, who abandoned her soon after she became pregnant. Louise's younger sister, Audrey, described this guy as a nice, reputable person who absolutely refused to pay child support. Do those two things go together? Does that connect? I don't know. Lucas Malago says, more evil than Percival. I can believe it. We haven't seen Percival in a long time. No one is more evil than Percival, my twin brother. No one. These are OGs in the room here that know about Percival, my twin. Some have said my twin brother. Others have said just a second personality. And the reason we haven't seen Percival is I, during one of my moves, lost the fake mustache and spirit gum. Census records reveal that several men by the name of John Worthington and Lloyd Marshall lived near Louise when Bundy was conceived. How many? How many guys? Just by random happenstance, there's a plethora of dudes named Lloyd Marshall. And anyway, some family members expressed suspicions that Bundy was sired by Louise's own father, Samuel Cowell. In the 2020 documentary, which is called, that's the Air Force. That's my Air Force. That's my Air Force. And I even found an Air Force picture where they all have masks on, so you don't really know which was. I thought that was funny. Anyway, in this documentary, an HBO Max documentary called Crazy, Not Insane, psychiatrist Dorothy Otnow Lewis claims she received a sample of Bundy's blood and that the DNA test had confirmed that he was not a product of incest. In fact, he had a little thing on his neck, that not a product of. Anyway, so For the first 3 years of his life, Bundy lived in the Roxborough neighborhood of Philadelphia with his maternal grandparents, Samuel Cowell and Eleanor Longstreet. I guess nobody in this family ever got married. The couple raised him as their son to avoid the social stigma that accompanied childbirth outside wedlock at the time. Family, friends, and even young Bundy were told that his grandparents were his actual parents and that his mother was his older sister. Creepy much? Well, yeah, it's possible he's his own uncle, Rich. That's exactly right. Very creepy. Now, Ted Bundy eventually discovered the truth, but his recalling of those circumstances varied. He told a girlfriend that a cousin showed him a copy of his birth certificate after calling him a bastard. But he told biographers Stephen Michaud and this fella here, and I don't know that you get to pick your biographer, but this guy, doesn't he look a little... Look, it just always freaks me out when a guy has gray hair, sorry, audio podcast listeners, and black eyebrows. And then this dude looks like he might have makeup on, so I don't know. His name's Hugh Ainsworth. And he told these biographers that he had found the certificate himself. Who cares? Now, Ann Rule, who knew Bundy personally, there's our old friend Ann. She wrote that he didn't find out about his true parentage until 1969 when he located his original birth record in Vermont. And so Bundy expressed a lifelong resentment towards his mother for never telling him about his real father and for leaving him to discover the truth for himself. And I just want to point out, a lot of serial unalivers of women have deep, deep resentment and hatred for their mother. And they also frequently have mothers that are unwed with mysterious, if not unknown, fatherhood. And the mothers kind of bounce from dude to dude to dude. Just saying. Wanda is just saying things that I don't know what that means. Same hobbies as Ted. You have the same hobbies as Ted? That's scary. Well, I don't know. Ted was good at school, so maybe he could punctuate. I don't know. Norman Bates wannabe, definitely. In some interviews, Bundy spoke warmly of his grandparents and told Ann Rule that he identified with, respected, and clung to his grandfather Samuel. In 1987, though, he and other family members told attorneys that Samuel was a tyrannical bully who beat his wife and his dog, swung neighborhood cats by their tails, was racist, xenophobic. In one instance, Samuel reportedly threw his daughter Julia down a flight of stairs for the crime of oversleeping. Samuel would sometimes speak aloud to unseen presences, and at least on one occasion flew into a violent rage when the question of Bundy's paternity was raised. Bundy described his grandmother as a timid and obedient woman who periodically underwent electroconvulsive therapy for depression and was afraid to leave their house. Electroconvulsive therapy, known as shock therapy to most people. Okay, look, I think they might even still use it in very extreme cases today. But back in the day, they thought strapping somebody to a car battery or whatever, they thought electroshock therapy was a thing. And they did it to people. And it's, I don't know. These descriptions of Bundy's grandparents have been questioned occasionally, whatever. In 1950, though, Louise changed her surname from Cowell to Nelson, and at the urging of multiple family members, left Philadelphia with her son to live with cousins Alan and Jane Scott in Tacoma, Washington. Hey now, look at that. Things are on the up and up. Fresh air, mountains, water, streams. I think young Ted's going to straighten out in no time, don't you? The following year, she met Johnny Culpepper Bundy, a rich banker and wealthy man with a large estate. No, and he was not that. He was a hospital cook. And by that I mean he cooked at a hospital. He didn't find hospitals and then cook them. And she met him at an adult singles night at Tacoma's First Methodist Church, because nobody knows how to party like the Methodist. They married later that year, and Johnny actually formally adopted Ted Bundy. So imagine that, about 30 years later. Hey, you got any kids? Yeah, I adopted one. What's he do for a living? Well, he pretends to be hurt, drags women into his Volkswagen, drugs them, handcuffs them, and then unalives them, and then puts them in the woods and goes back and he visits them and he does dirty, naughty, sexy time things to him. Yeah. There's conflicting reports if Ted serviced Ann Rule. Spawn, I'm going to go ahead and say that's not correct. I mean, there may be conflicting reports, but those reports were brought up by idiots because Ted actually had a type. There was a type, with one or two very extreme exceptions, a type of woman he was interested in, and Anne did not fit that type at all. Yeah. Bundy would later complain to a girlfriend that his adopted father, Johnny, was not his real father and wasn't very bright and didn't make much money. And we know at least two of those things are true. Bundy exhibited what we like to call, this is his high school graduation picture, by the way. As a senior, 1965, Bundy exhibited what we like to call disturbing behavior at an early age. Oh, by the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those things that can help us out with the algorithm. I hate to say this, Ted Bundy himself would probably at least like and share the show. He was, that kind of person. So if you don't, just saying. And in a few seconds here, I'll pin the link. Bundy exhibited disturbing behavior early on. His youngest sister recalled that on one occasion she took a nap, and then she woke up from the nap, and when she woke up from the nap, she found herself surrounded by knives from the kitchen and her little brother standing by the bed smiling. A childhood neighbor named Sandy Holt recalled Ted Bundy was a mean-spirited kid that liked to inflict pain and suffering and fear, and that Bundy once engaged in animal cruelty by hanging a stray cat from his backyard clothesline and setting it on fire with lighter fluid. Yeah. Like you do. She also claimed that Bundy would take younger children from the neighborhood into the woods and terrorize them. And she said you'd hear them screaming for blocks. I mean, no matter where we were, we could hear them screaming. Oh, by the way, Ted also built makeshift punji traps. That's their neighborhood. What happened to my punji trap? I guess the punji trap picture is one that didn't translate. Punji traps are when you take sharpened sticks and bury them in the ground so that when someone steps on them, the stick pokes through the bottom of their foot. Yeah. 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 Remember the guy that was his biographer that looked like an older chick with the black eyebrows? Anyway, to that guy, he described picking through trash barrels in search of pictures of naked women. Now, even in the days before Pornhub and all that, it was quite a long shot to dig through trash and find a picture of a naked woman. His attorney, Polly Nelson, he apparently told her that he would peruse detective magazines and crime novels for stories that involved sexual violence, particularly when those stories were illustrated on the cover. In a letter to Anne Rule, he said he never read those kind of magazines. Right. He also told one of his biographers that he would consume large quantities of alcohol and do basically peeping Tom stuff. Okay? Yeah. His social life was also sort of a varied thing. He was kept to himself as an adolescent. He didn't know about social interactions. He was perceived as shy and introverted, but that's because he was mercilessly teased for this by his classmates. They poured cold water on him as he showered in his stall. They would do all sorts of crazy stuff. Classmates here at Woodrow Wilson High School, however, told Anne Rule that Bundy was well known and well liked. He was very good at downhill skiing, although he had to steal equipment and forge his lift tickets. He was arrested twice in high school on suspicion of burglary and motor vehicle theft. And then when he turned 18, those juvenile records were expunged. So he didn't have to worry about that anymore. Let me see. It's just like, wait, his dad is his grandpa? I know somebody from the Midwest who apparently got electroshock in recent years. Yeah, that they don't do that as much anymore. Wanda says, whoa, me and Ted have same upbringing. Methodist, meth-autist. Ain't no party like a Methodist party, says Uncle Fatty. He's his own brother. Yes. Wanda said, what did Ted think of spiders? Who doesn't love spiders? Rich Giraffe says, R.I.P. Kitty Cat. Goat says, gotta check near the hobo dumpsters for the naked lady pictures. Why wouldn't he just do what everybody else did back then and go get a Sears catalog or a JCPenney catalog and turn to the ladies' underwear section? And that was a thing. Anyway, after he graduated from high school, by the way, a lot of people believe that Ted, while he was in high school, okay, so he's got this period where he doesn't get along with people. He's super secluded. He's shy. He doesn't talk. As his puberty starts ramping up, like the rest of ours does, he starts to become a sociopath. He starts to learn what to say to people, how to say it to them, how to ingratiate himself with people. You know what I mean? And he starts to get good at that. Now, he first attended the University of Puget Sound, and then he transferred over here to the University of Washington to study, of all things, and I'm not joking, he wanted to study Chinese. Yeah, he wanted to study the Chinese. And he became, oh man, this is 1967. He becomes romantically involved with one of his classmates at the University of Washington. And this is gigantic in the Ted Bundy lore, okay? Because most, if not a lot of people, think a lot of the things he did was based on this relationship, okay? He meets a classmate named Diane Edwards, who he later described as the only woman I ever really loved. Now, in early 1968, he drops out of college and works a series of very minimum wage jobs. And he also volunteers at the Seattle office for the presidential campaign of super rich guy and, vice president under Gerald Ford, 49th governor of New York, Nelson Rockefeller. So he's a volunteer on the campaign of Nelson Rockefeller. And he became this guy, Arthur Fletcher. He became Arthur Fletcher's driver and bodyguard during Fletcher's campaign for lieutenant governor of Washington State. So he's now starting to move in and out of political circles. Diane Edwards, this girl that he's in love with, well, she graduates in the spring of 1968, and she leaves Washington for San Francisco. And he visited her later that year after he earned a scholarship to study Chinese at Stanford University that summer. Now, I don't think that you can minimize the fact that Ted kept going to college. He, Puget Sound, then University of Washington. Then he gets a scholarship to Stanford University. That ain't easy to do. Goat Scroat, R.I.P. Sears catalog. You got that right. I remember looking at the Sears catalog. Oh, this is that lady from last year. Anyway. Fishman says, classic one-itis. Don't know what that is. Can't be that classic. It's Always Sunny based on Ted. Rich Trav says, pretty good bodyguard. Yeah, no girls were going to get near him. The Chinese language is truly a mind virus. Well, a lot of people have it. So in August, Ted Bundy, who, remember, is starting to move in all these political circles, he attends the 1968 Republican National Convention in Miami. And that's part of, I don't know if Team Brittany's still here. That's, I guess, part of his love of Florida that he would rekindle later on in life. Shortly thereafter, Denise Edwards ended their relationship and returned to her family home in California. She was frustrated by what she described as Bundy's immaturity and lack of ambition. Please keep this in mind, this Denise Edwards thing. Diane Edwards. Keep that in mind, okay? That's going to be very important. And Ted is devastated by this breakup. Devastated. He goes to Colorado, and then he goes further east, visiting relatives in Arkansas and Philadelphia, and enrolls for one summer at Temple University. During his studies, he frequently visits New York City, and he visits New York City because New York City has pornography. Yes, New York City has those grindhouse theaters of you just go, you pay your $3, you go in, and you can watch porn until you, for days if you don't want to leave. He immersed himself in violent pornographic literature while nursing his wounds from this breakup. And it was also at this time, Anne Rule believes, that he discovered who his true parents are. So he breaks up with this girl that he thinks, hey, we're going to be the couple of the lifetime. I'm in college. I'm studying Chinese. I'm working for these bigwigs in politics. You're a good-looking gal from a nice family, and we're going to go on and conquer the world. Bundy returns to Washington State in the fall of 1969, where he meets a woman named Elizabeth Klepfer. And she is a single mother from Ogden, Utah, who worked as a secretary at the University of Washington School of Medicine. And their relationship is back and forth and back and forth. And I think she's one of these women that just, he kind of treats her bad, but she won't break up with him kind of thing. They keep going back and forth until his initial arrest. He became a father figure to her daughter, Molly, who was 3 years old when he started dating Elizabeth. Yeah. And he remained in her life for the next 7 years. As an adult, Molly wrote of incidents beginning at age 7 in which Bundy was abusive or inappropriate with her. Her accounts include Bundy hitting her in the face, knocking her down, putting her at risk of drowning, indecent exposure, improper touching, disguised as accidents or games. Like I told you, this guy is awful. Awful. In mid-1970, Bundy is now focused and goal-oriented, and he re-enrolls at the University of Washington. Oh, by the way, there's Ogden, Utah. Exciting, isn't it? He re-enrolls, we'll just keep it on Ogden, Utah. He re-enrolls in the University of Washington. This time he does so as a psychology major, though. He kicks Chinese to the curb. He became an honor student and was extremely well regarded by his professors. In 1971, he took a job at Seattle's unaliving hotline crisis center. Took a job there. There he met and worked alongside Ann Rule, former Seattle police officer. A lot of people don't know that about Ann Rule. She used to be a police officer, an aspiring crime writer who would later write one of the definitive Bundy biographies, The Stranger Beside Me. And it's incredible. I think they may have made a book about it. Ann Rule saw nothing disturbing in Bundy's personality at the time, and she described him as kind, solicitous, and empathic. And that's part of the book, is her saying, hey, I didn't have any problems with this guy. We were good friends, blah, 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 blah. But then she kind of documents all the other things that happened after he knew her. Florida has all the weirdos. It has its share. I will say this. Both of the times that I lived in Florida, I found the dating pool to be quite wonderful. And Maine has weirdos because Anne was in love. I don't know, maybe. Well, maybe she was married or seeing somebody. I can't remember all the details of that. After graduating from the University of Washington in 1972, so now our good friend, by the way, unlike a lot of the serial unalivers, has a bachelor's degree. Hey now. Bundy joined, this is no joke, he joined Governor Daniel J. Evans's re-election campaign. Posing as a college student, he shadowed Evans's opponent, former Governor Albert Rossellini, and recorded his speeches for analysis by Evans' team. Evans subsequently appointed Bundy to the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Can you imagine being in politics and you're this hunyuck here and, you know, your opponent goes, hey, guess who appointed Ted Bundy to the Crime Prevention Advisory Committee? I'm Albert Rossellini, and I didn't appoint Ted Bundy to the Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Elect me governor. After Evans was reelected, Bundy was hired as an assistant to Ross Davis, chairman of the Washington State Republican Party. He's the assistant to the chairman of the Washington State Republican Party. Davis thought well enough of Bundy to describe him as smart, aggressive, and a believer in the system. In early 1973, despite not that great of LSAT scores, that's the legal SAT, Bundy is accepted into the law schools of the University of Puget Sound and the University of Utah. And he gets into this law school on the strength of letters of recommendation from the governor and the chairman of the Republican Party and several University of Washington psychology professors. Can you imagine? Now, I put it to you, Tom Gulley Show viewers. Can you imagine being on the phone going, yeah, hi, this is Professor Gulley. I wrote some letters of recommendation for a Theodore Bundy for your law school program. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. You may have them there. Hey, could you tear those up? Could you tear mine up? Just tear it up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because you wouldn't want those getting out. During a trip to California on Republican Party business in the summer of 1973, Bundy sees an opportunity. And the opportunity that he sees is, I can rekindle my relationship with none other than Diane Edwards. This is my chance to kick things back off with that gal what done me wrong, Diane Edwards. Oh, yeah. That's what he sees. And Diane Edwards, number one, is because, Ted is such a good-looking cuss. As I hate pre-roll commercials. He's such a good-looking cuss, and he's so charming. And let's face it, Ted has sort of reinvented himself, right? He's not that unmotivated Chinese student anymore. He's pressing the flesh with, hobnobbing with biggies in the Republican Party, and he's the assistant to this guy and to that gal, and he's a mover and a shaker, right? Old Ted Bundy. So she marvels at this. Just like me. What do you mean, just like me? I'm not involved in any of that. And she's like, this guy is now serious and professional, and he is this far, because he's in frickin' law school. He is this far from being a big political mover and shaker, and you know how girls are, right? So he starts seeing her again at the same time that he's dating, remember Elizabeth Klepfer with the little girl Molly and all that? He's seeing her at the same time too. And the two ladies aren't aware of each other's existence because every playa knows you never let your side piece know about your main piece, or really any of your pieces know about. So in the fall, Bundy matriculates to the University of Puget Sound Law School, right? The Puget Sound one. Oops, I don't want to get to that yet. And he continues courting Diane Edwards, who this girl flew from California to Seattle several times to stay with him. And you know what that means, especially back in 1973. That means they were doing the bone tattoo. They were getting down. They were doing the St. Vitus dance on each other. They were trading gravy. You know what I mean? Because that's what they did back in 73. They even discussed marriage. And at one point, he introduces her to the chairman of the Washington State Republican Party as his fiancé. You forgot already? Just like you, Tom, and you forgot? Rich Giraffe says thumbs up. He doesn't even know why. Wanda says trade and gravy. Yeah, you know what that means. You got kids, you know what that means. You don't really trade it. Well, I guess you do. You don't trade it back and forth. You just, one person gives some gravy to the other person who has gravy already. If that makes any sense. Now, Juana says she hasn't heard about that one. Juana, don't you know I am of infinite supply of things that are amazing? Now, in a move that I'm not going to say I endorse, I'm just going to say there's probably a lot of dudes out there that don't like Ted Bundy, that realize how awful Ted Bundy is, but that might high-five him for this next move. Because remember, I do, which is why I miss you in the disco. I ain't never coming back there. By the way, I pinned the thing in the whatever. So here's the thing that most dudes, even the ones like me that just don't care for Ted Bundy, might just kind of go, that was awesome. Because remember, Diane Edwards, she kicks him to the curb. Because he's not all, I'm going to be all, she doesn't care about him as a person, right? What's in here, his soul, his all that stuff. The trappings weren't there. Oh, he's studying Chinese, and he doesn't seem motivated enough to me. But then, when he's a lawyer, and he's hobnobbing with all these political big wigs, now she's all interested, and she'll fly to Seattle just to, share her love wallet with his dude waiver. In January of 1974, this is the move, Ted Bundy abruptly breaks off all contact with Diane Edwards. Her phone calls and letters go completely unreturned or acknowledged. When she finally reaches him a month later, she demands, like she can demand, right? Like after all her nonsense, she can demand. She demands to know why he unilaterally had ended their relationship without any explanation at all, in a flat, calm voice. He replied, "Diane, I have no idea what you mean," and hung up. Remember when you just kicked me to the curb? Remember that? She never heard from him again. Bundy later explained, "I just wanted to prove to myself that I could have married her." But Diane Edwards concluded in retrospect that Ted's high-power courtship in the latter part of 1973 had been deliberately planned, and that he had waited all those years to be in a position where he could make her fall in love with him so he could drop her and reject her as she had rejected him. And I say to you, Diane Edwards, sure. Really? Do you think, Diane, that's what happened? Did that dawn on you? Because I guarantee you, Ted wanted you to come to that realization. Oh, got you back. Bye-bye. Thanks for playing. Bye-bye. Here's a lovely parting gift. Bye-bye. So, okay, now that's the one legitimately nice thing. It's the one redeeming thing Ted did in his whole life. And it's not that redeeming. Fishman says, "Bundy Bros, we are so back." Wanda is dancing for some reason. And then Rich says, "Cold as ice." Yeah, he's willing to sacrifice their love. Yeah, someday she'll pay the price. I know. You've seen it before. It happens all the time. Anybody? Anybody know what I just did there? All right. So by this time, Bundy, because now the joke's over, right? He's got her back and kicked her to the curb. He's skipping classes at law school. And by April, he stopped going to law school altogether. Oh, also around this time, young women began to disappear in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, that's when, nobody really knows, and there's no definitive consensus on when or where Ted Bundy began unaliving women. And I hope Team Brittany's still listening to us, even if she's not in the chat. Team Brittany is the most awesome. She really is. She is. If you guys knew how awesome she is, you'd be scared to talk to her. Ted is still alive, by the way. Oh, no, Wanda, I am very convinced that he's no longer alive, because one of the things you can see on the internet, and I won't show them to you here, are Ted's autopsy photos. Ted told a lot of different, he's pretending to be his own doppelganger. Well, yes, a doppelganger in a grave is the same as being dead. He told several stories to different people and refused to divulge the specifics of his earliest crimes. He confessed in bloody, gory detail to the specifics of his later crimes. Okay? The later ones, he told them every single tiny thing. But the early ones, he wouldn't talk about those. He told one person he attempted his first kidnapping in New Jersey in 1969, but that he hadn't really unalived anybody until 1971 in Seattle. He told a psychologist he unalived 2 women in Atlantic City in 1960. He was all over the board. There's a lot of people that believed he might have started as a teenager, but his earliest documented homicides were committed in 1974 when he was 27 years old. And by then, he said he had mastered the necessary skills to leave minimal incriminating forensic evidence at crime scenes. Yes. Shortly after midnight, on January the 4th, 1974, around the time that he had terminated his relationship with Edwards, Bundy entered the basement apartment of 18-year-old Karen Sparks, dancer and student at the University of Washington in Seattle's University District. After bludgeoning this poor young girl with a metal rod from her bed frame, he essayed her with that same object, causing internal injuries, rupturing things. She remained unconscious in the hospital for 10 days, and although she survived, she was left with permanent brain damage, with significant loss to her vision and her hearing. That's a different girl. This girl is Lynn Ann Healy. Sorry, audio podcast listeners. On February 1st, around a month later, Bundy broke into yet another basement room of this girl I'm showing you now, 21-year-old Lynn Ann Healy, a University of Washington undergraduate, who actually had a job broadcasting morning radio weather reports for skiers. He beat this poor girl unconscious, dressed her in blue jeans, a white blouse, and boots, carried her away, drove her to a secluded area where he did bad things to her, and unalived her before dumping her body. Now, during the first half of 1974, female college students were disappearing at the rate of about one per month in that part of the world. Remember February, beginning of it? Well, March 12th, Donna Gale Manson, 19-year-old student at Evergreen State College in Olympia, that's 60 miles southwest of Seattle, left her dormitory to attend a jazz concert on campus, but she never arrived. Bundy claimed that he burned her skull in his girlfriend's fireplace in a fit of paranoia and cleanliness. On April 17th, 18-year-old Susan Elaine Rancourt disappeared on her way to her dorm room after an advisors meeting at the Central Washington State College in Ellensburg, 110 miles southeast of Seattle. Two female Central Washington students later came forward to report encounters. One of them on the night of Rancourt's disappearance, the other 3 nights earlier, of a man wearing a sling who was asking for help carrying a load of books to his brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. Yes. By the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. That would really help me out with the algorithm, the almighty algorithm. And I think I've pinned the link to the top of the chat. On May the 6th, just about a month at a time, Roberta Kathleen Parks, age 20, left her dormitory at Oregon State University in Corvallis, 260 miles south of Seattle, to have coffee with friends at the Memorial Union, but never arrived. Bundy claimed that he spotted Parks in the cafeteria and persuaded her to go with him to a bar because he was so darn good looking. After they got into his car, he tied and gagged Parks and drove her back to Washington, where he did away with her. And he did bad things to her twice along the way. That was May 6th. On June 1st, Brenda Carol Ball, age 22, disappeared after leaving the Flame Tavern in Burien near Seattle Tacoma International Airport. She was last seen leaving the parking lot talking to a brown-haired man with his arm in a sling. Bundy later stated he brought Ball, back to his residence where they had consensual encounter before he strangled her while she was sleeping, although this failed to explain the damage done to her skull. Investigators from Seattle and King County grew increasingly concerned about these disappearances. There was no significant physical evidence, and the missing women had little to nothing in common apart from similar appearance. And this is why I don't think Ann Rule was anything to Ted Bundy. They were young, attractive, white, college students or college age, with long straight hair parted in the middle. And guess who else looked that way? One Diane Edwards. In the early hours of June 11th, that's just 10 days after the last one, 18-year-old University of Washington student Georgianne Hawkins vanished while walking down a brightly lit alley between her boyfriend's dormitory residence and her sorority house. The next morning, 3 Seattle homicide detectives and a criminalist combed the entire alleyway on their hands and knees, and they found nothing. Bundy later told one of the investigators that he lured Hawkins to his car and knocked her unconscious with a crowbar. After handcuffing her, he drove her to Issaquah, a suburb 20 miles east of Seattle, where he strangled her and spent the night with her doing bad things, even though she was no longer with us. The next afternoon, he returned to the University of Washington alley, and in the midst of a major crime scene investigation, located and gathered one of her earrings and one of her shoes, where he had left them in the adjoining parking lot, and then he leaves unobserved. It was a feat so brazen, the investigator said, that it astonishes police even today. After Bundy disposed of the body, he said that he visited Hawkins' unalive body on 3 occasions. After Hawkins' disappearance, this was publicized heavily. Witnesses came forward to report seeing a man on crutches with a leg cast carrying a briefcase in an alley behind a nearby dormitory on the night of her disappearance. One woman recalled that the man asked her to help him carry the case to his car. That car being a light brown Volkswagen. This is the actual, sorry audio podcast listeners, 1968 Volkswagen Beetle that Ted Bundy used to commit many of his crimes. And it was on display at the now defunct National Museum of Crime and Punishment and is now at the Alcatraz East Crime Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Perhaps Dolly Parton has something to do with it. Palm Beach Ted. Well, we'll get there. He's still in the great Northwest. During this period of time, Ted Bundy was working in Olympia as the assistant director of the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Committee, where he wrote a pamphlet for women on SA prevention. He later worked at the Department of Emergency Services, a state government agency involved in the search for missing women. At the Department of Emergency Services, he met and began dating Carol Ann Boone, a twice-divorced mother of 2 who would play an important role in the final phase of his life 6 years later. So he's got Klepfer and he's got Boone now, both on the handle. Zalipa says the death bug. That's for certain. Reports of the brutal attack on Sparks and the 6 missing women appeared prominently in newspapers and on television throughout Washington and Oregon. Fear spread among the population. Hitchhiking by young women dropped sharply. Pressure was mounting on law enforcement agencies, but the lack of physical evidence severely hampered them. Police wouldn't provide reporters with the little information that was available for fear of compromising the investigation. Further similarities between the victims were noted. The disappearances all took place at night, usually near ongoing construction work, within a week of midterm or final exams. All of the victims were wearing slacks or blue jeans when they disappeared. And at many of the crime scenes, go figure, there were sightings of a man wearing a cast or a sling and driving a brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. The Washington and Oregon murders culminated on July 14th with the abductions in broad daylight of 2 women from a crowded beach at Lake Sammamish State Park in Issaquah. Broad daylight now. 4 female witnesses described an attractive young man wearing a white tennis outfit with his left arm in a sling, speaking with a light accent, perhaps Canadian or British. Introducing himself as Ted, he asked for their help in unloading a sailboat from his tan or bronze-colored Volkswagen Beetle. 3 of them refused. One of them accompanied him as far as his car, saw that there was no sailboat, and got out of there. 3 additional witnesses saw, quote-unquote, Ted. And by the way, he's got a million other names he used, and I'll go over them with you if you want me to a little bit later on. 3 additional witnesses saw him approach 23-year-old Janice Ann Ott, a probation caseworker at King County Juvenile Court, and watched her leave the beach in his company. About 4 hours later, Denise Marie Naslund, a 19-year-old woman who was studying to become a computer programmer, left a picnic to go to the restroom, and she never returned. Bundy told Michaud, one of his biographers, and FBI agent William Hagmeyer, that Ott was still alive when he returned with Naslund, and that he forced one to watch as he assaulted and unalived the other. He later denied this in an interview at the eve of his execution, but I keep trying to, compared to Charles Manson looks like a nice fella compared to this guy. King County Police finally possessing a detailed description of their suspect and his car, posted flyers throughout the Seattle area. A composite sketch was printed in regional newspapers and broadcast on local television stations. Klepfer, that girl with the little girl Molly and all that, Ann Rule, our crime writer, who used to be a police officer in Seattle, and a Department of Emergency Services employee, and a University of Washington psychology professor, all recognized the profile, the sketch, and the car, and they reported Bundy as a possible suspect. But detectives who were getting 200 tips a day, they thought it was unlikely that the clean-cut law student with no adult criminal record, with the contacts high up in politics, could be the perpetrator. But on September 6th, 2 grouse hunters discovered the skeletal remains of Ott and Naslund. Those are the 2 girls from this park here. And they discovered them about 2 miles east of Lake Sammamish State Park in Issaquah, near a service road. An extra femur and several vertebrae found at the site were later identified by Bundy as those of Hawkins, the girl that he abducted in that alleyway, and then went back and recovered her earring and a shoe. 6 months later, forestry students from the Green River Community College discovered the skulls and mandibles of Healy, Rancourt, Parks, and Ball on Taylor Mountain, where Bundy frequently hiked, just east of Issaquah. Manson's remains were never, ever recovered. In August of 1974, Bundy received a second acceptance from the University of Utah Law School and moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, leaving Klepfer, that mother with Molly, the little girl, in Seattle. Now, while he called her often, he dated at least a dozen other women. He studied the first-year law curriculum a second time, but was devastated to find out that the other students had more intellectual capacity. He found the classes completely incomprehensible. It was a great disappointment to me, he said. A new string of homicides began following a month later, including 2 that would remain undiscovered until Bundy confessed to them shortly before his execution. Here is the rooming house in Salt Lake City, where Bundy lived from September 1974 to October 1975, and it shows the fire escape audio podcast listeners, the fire escape that he used to sneak into his room and windows to the utility room where he concealed photo souvenirs of his evil doing. Yes, he kept little souvenirs like a lot of them do. On September 2nd, Bundy did bad things to and strangled a still unidentified hitchhiker in Idaho, then returned the next day to photograph and dismember that person before disposing of the remains in a nearby river. On October 2nd, about a month later, he abducted 16-year-old Nancy Wilcox in Holiday, Utah, a suburb of Salt Lake City. Bundy convinced that Wilcox was walking on a poorly lit main roadway when he parked his car and forced her into an orchard at knife point. Oh, I'll leave that one here for a second. He then restrained her, put her into his vehicle, and drove her back to his apartment where he allegedly kept her for 24 hours. Keeps her in this apartment that I'm showing you right now, sorry, audio podcast listeners, for 24 hours. He then told investigators her remains were buried near Capitol Reef National Park, some 200 miles south of Holiday, but those were never found. Side note, you see this, Capitol Reef National Park? Yeah, that's where I live. That is, I could throw a rock to Capitol Reef National Park. It's in Wayne County, Utah, where I live. And if you were wanting to get rid of it, it's a big park now. And there's a lot of it. Anyway, Rich Giraffe said, looks nice. Yeah. Right there on State Highway 24. Anyway, on October 18th, September, October, about a month, Melissa Ann Smith, the 17-year-old daughter of the police chief of Midvale, another Salt Lake City suburb, disappeared after leaving a pizza parlor around 9:30 p.m. Her nude body was found in a nearby mountainous area 9 days later. Post-mortem examination indicated she may have remained alive for up to 7 days following her disappearance. On October 31st, yeah, that's Halloween to you and me, Laura Ann Aim, I guess some could pronounce it Amy, but I think it's Aim, also age 17, disappeared in Lehi, 25 miles south of Salt Lake City, after leaving a Halloween party by herself just after midnight. She was last seen trying to hitchhike. Her body was found by hikers 9 miles to the northeast in American Fork Canyon on Thanksgiving Day. The medical examiner estimated that Aim had died on November 20th, 20 days after her disappearance. Even though Bundy confessed to doing this, it wasn't until just this year that it was confirmed to be Bundy by forensic DNA testing. Well, Fatty says, the great wide open. And Fishman said, this Ted guy was a real jerk. Oh, he was awful. The most awful. Both Smith and Aim had been beaten, essayed, other bad things that have to do with Sodom and Gomorrah, and strangled with nylon stockings. Years later, Bundy described his post-mortem rituals with the bodies of Smith and Aim, including hair shampooing and the application of makeup. What a sick dude. We're not even close to being finished. And by the way, the link is pinned. And by the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. Get the whole gang here. In the late afternoon of November 8th, Bundy approached 18-year-old telephone operator Carol DeRanch at Fashion Place Mall in Murray, less than a mile from the Midvale restaurant where Smith was last seen. He identified himself as Officer Roseland of the Murray Police Department, told DeRanch that someone had attempted to break into her car, and asked her to accompany him to the station to file a complaint. When DeRanch pointed out to Bundy that he was driving on a road that did not lead to the police station, he immediately pulled onto the shoulder and attempted to handcuff her. During their struggle, he inadvertently fastened both handcuffs to the same wrist, and DeRanch was able to open the door and escape. So, of course, Bundy kind of freaked out. He took several months off. No, of course he didn't. Later that evening, Deborah Jean Kent, a 17-year-old student at Viewmont High School in Bountiful, 20 miles north of Murray, disappeared after leaving a theater production at the school to pick up her brother. Better go back one. The school's drama teacher and a student told police that a stranger had asked each of them to come out to the parking lot to identify a car. Another student later saw the same man pacing in the rear of the auditorium, and the drama teacher spotted him again shortly before the end of the play. Outside the auditorium, investigators found a key, and that key unlocked the handcuffs removed from DeRanch's wrist. Bundy eventually admitted to abducting Kent and keeping her at his apartment for a day, stating she was alive during half of it. Half of it. In November, Klepfer, remember the girl back in Seattle? There's a little thing called Hell Hath No Fury. Okay. Well, all right. She called King County Police a second time after reading that young women were disappearing in towns surrounding Salt Lake City. Detective Randy Hergesheimer of the Major Crimes Division interviewed her in detail. By then, Bundy had risen considerably on the King County hierarchy of suspicion, but the Lake Sammamish witness, considered most reliable by detectives, failed to identify him from a photo lineup. In December, Klepfer called the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office and repeated her suspicions. She's doing this all behind Bundy's back, by the way. Bundy's name was added to their list of suspects, but at that time, no credible forensic evidence linked him to the Utah killings. In January of 1975, Bundy returned to Seattle after his final exams and spent a week with Klepfer, who didn't say a word about reporting him to the police. And she reported him 3 different times. And she made plans to visit him in Salt Lake City in August. In 1975, Bundy shifted much of his criminal activity eastward from his home base in Utah to Colorado. On January 12th, a 23-year-old registered nurse, by the way, this is a canyon where they found a whole bunch of named Karen Eileen Campbell. I don't know what I have skipped here. I thought I had a picture of this gal. I've got a picture of this gal. 23-year-old registered nurse named Caroline Campbell disappeared while walking down a well-lit hallway between the elevator and her room at the Wildwood Inn, now known as the Wildwood Lodge, in Snowmass Village, about 400 miles southeast of Salt Lake City. Here's that hallway. She disappeared while walking down this hallway between the elevator and her room. Boom, disappeared. That's crazy. Her unclothed body was found a month later next to a dirt road just outside the resort. According to the coroner's report, she'd been killed by blows to her head from a blunt instrument that left a distinctive linear groove depression on her skull. Her assailant had slit her left earlobe, and her body also bore deep cuts from a sharp weapon. On March 15th, 100 miles north of Snowmass Village, Vail ski instructor Julie Lynn Cunningham, age 26, disappeared while walking from her apartment to a dinner date with a friend. Bundy later told Colorado investigators he approached her on crutches and asked her to help carry his ski boots to his car, where he clubbed and handcuffed her before essaying her at a secondary site near Rifle, 90 miles west of Vail. Weeks later, he made the 6-hour drive from Salt Lake City to revisit her remains. Denise Lynn Oliverson, age 25, disappeared near the Utah-Colorado border in Grand Junction on April 6th while riding her bike to her parents' house. Her bike and sandals were found under a viaduct near a railroad bridge. Bundy stated he abducted Oliverson, unalived her in his car near the Utah state line, and dumped her body here in the Colorado River. This admission was supported by gas receipts, which showed that he was in the city on the same day that she went missing. On May 6th, about a month later, he parked outside the Alameda Junior High School in Pocatello, Idaho. After seeing 12-year-old Lynette Dawn Culver walking alone, lured her into his vehicle before driving her to his Holiday Inn motel room, unalived her in the bathtub, disposed of her body in the Snake River. Actually, I think this might be the Snake River. Sorry, audio podcast listeners. Bundy reportedly provided intimate details about her personal life in his confession. In May, 3 of Bundy's Washington State Department of Emergency Services co-workers visited him in Salt Lake City and stayed for a week in his apartment. He subsequently spent a week in Seattle with Klepfer, divorced mom with the little girl, in early June, and they discussed getting married the following Christmas. Again, she made no mention of her multiple discussions with authorities in King County and Salt Lake County. Bundy disclosed neither his ongoing relationship with Boone nor a concurrent romance with the University of Utah law student. On June 28th, 15-year-old Susan Curtis vanished from the campus of Brigham, that's Snake River right there, vanished from the campus of Brigham Young University, 45 miles south of Salt Lake. Her murder became Bundy's last confession, tape recorded moments before he entered the execution chamber. The bodies of victims Wilcox, Kent, Cunningham, Oliverson, Culver, and Curtis were never found. He just confessed to them. In August of 1975, Bundy was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, although he was not an active participant in services and ignored most of the church's restrictions. He would later be excommunicated following his 1976 kidnapping conviction. In Washington State, investigators were still struggling to analyze the Pacific Northwest murder spree that had ended as abruptly as it began. They started compiling a database. They employed the King County payroll computer, a very primitive machine by today's standards, but the only one available. By inputting many of the lists they'd compiled, classmates, acquaintances, Volkswagen owners named Ted, out of the thousands of names, 26 turned up on 4 lists. One was Bundy. And Bundy was on a manually compiled list detectives made as well. He was literally at the top of the pile when word came from Utah of his arrest. Now, I know some of you are getting bored. Tom, why are you just telling us about all these people? Well, first of all, so you get an idea how many. Charles Manson, Tate LaBianca, Stephen Parent, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski, Sharon Tate, Lino LaBianca, Rosemary LaBianca, Donald Shea, Gary Hinman. That's 9. And Manson didn't kill any of them. He had other people do it. We're way over 9. But some crazy, crazy stuff is about to happen. So stick with us, because it's crazy, crazy. It's not just crazy. It's cray-cray. On August 16th, 1975, Bundy was arrested by Utah Highway Patrol Officer Bob Hayward in Granger, another suburb of Salt Lake City. Hayward had observed Bundy cruising a residential area in his Volkswagen during the pre-dawn hours and fleeing at high speed after seeing the patrol car. He also noticed that the Volkswagen's front passenger seat had been removed and placed on the rear seats. Searching the car, the officer found a ski mask, a second mask fashioned from pantyhose, a crowbar, handcuffs, trash bags, coil of rope, an ice pick, and other items initially assumed to be burglary tools. Bundy explained that the ski mask was for skiing, and he'd found the handcuffs in a dumpster, and the rest were just common household items. However, Detective Jerry Thompson remembered a similar suspect and car description from the Duranch kidnapping in November of 1974, and Bundy's name from Klepfer's phone call a month later. In a search of Bundy's apartment, police found a guide to Colorado ski resorts with a check mark by the Wildwood Inn, where Karen Campbell had disappeared, and a brochure that advertised the Viewmont High School play in Bountiful, where Kent had disappeared. Police didn't have sufficient evidence to detain Bundy, so he was released on his own recognizance. Bundy later said searchers missed a hidden collection of Polaroid photographs of his victims, which he destroyed after he was released. So it must have been under a seat or tucked in somewhere, and hidden in plain sight. The wolf is here. Gully gone cray cray. Cray cray it is. Hi, wolf. This is when things start to get really cray cray. I mean, really cray cray. Hey, look. They found a bunch of stuff. Now, if you found this stuff in the back of someone's car, what would you think? You know what I mean? Now, in September, Ted Bundy decides, hey, look, there's some more stuff that hey, this guy might not be up to any good. You know what I mean? This guy might not be up to any good. In September, our good friend Ted Bundy sold his Volkswagen Beetle to a Midvale teenager. Utah police immediately impounded the vehicle, and FBI technicians dismantled and searched it. Hairs were discovered matching samples obtained from Karen Campbell's body. Years later, they also identified hair strands as microscopically indistinguishable from those of Smith and Duranch. Duranch, of course, got away. FBI lab specialist Robert McNeil concluded the presence of strands in one car matching 3 different victims who had never met one another would be a coincidence of mind-boggling rarity. On October 2nd, detectives put Bundy into a lineup. Duranch immediately identified him as Officer Roseland, and witnesses from Bountiful recognized him as the stranger at the Viewmont High School auditorium. There was insufficient evidence to link him to Kent, whose body had not yet been found, but more than enough evidence to charge him with aggravated kidnapping, attempted criminal assault in the Duranch case. Bundy denied knowing Duranch, but had no alibi, and was freed on $15,000 bail paid by his parents, spent most of the time between his indictment and the trial living in Klepfer's house, the woman who has reported him to King County and Salt Lake County police, unbeknownst to him. Seattle police had insufficient evidence to charge him in the Pacific Northwest murders, but kept him under close surveillance. When Ted and I stepped out on the porch to go somewhere, Klepfer, his kind of girlfriend wrote, so many unmarked police cars started up that it sounded like the beginning of the Indy 500, which, by the way, is the greatest spectacle in racing, as I'm sure all you know. In November, 3 principal Bundy investigators, Jerry Thompson from Utah, Robert Keppel from Washington, and Michael Fisher from Colorado, met in Aspen, Colorado, and exchanged information with 30 detectives and prosecutors from 5 states. They're on to him now. While officials left the meeting, later referred to as the Aspen Summit, they left that meeting convinced Bundy was the murderer they sought. They agreed more hard evidence would be needed before he could be charged with any of this stuff because he was really good at not leaving any forensic evidence behind, and a lot of these girls hadn't been found yet. In February of 1976, Bundy stood trial for the DeRanch kidnapping. On the advice of his attorney, John O'Connell, he waived his right to a jury due to all the negative publicity surrounding the case. And after a 4-day bench trial and a weekend of deliberation, Judge Stuart Hansen Jr. found Ted Bundy guilty of kidnapping and assault. In June, he was sentenced to 1 to 15 years in the old Utah State Prison. Well, as would become, you're going to see, Ted Bundy was a slippery dude. A slippery dude. In October, Bundy was found hiding in bushes in the prison yard and carrying an escape kit, road maps, airline schedules, and a social security card, and so he had to spend several weeks in solitary confinement. Later that month, Colorado authorities charged him with Karen Campbell's murder. After a period of resistance, he waived extradition proceedings and was transferred to Aspen in January of 1977. And I think part of the reason, audio podcast listeners, look at this prison, he probably just didn't want to be in the Utah State Prison. Oh, you're going to send me to Colorado for a trial? Sounds like a vacation. On June 7, 1977, Bundy was transported 40 miles from the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs to the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen for a preliminary hearing. He'd elected to serve as his own attorney, and as such was excused by the judge from wearing handcuffs or leg shackles. During a recess, Bundy asked to visit the courthouse's law library to research his case while shielded from his guard's view behind a bookcase. He opened a window and jumped to the ground from the second story here. This is probably a better picture. Injuring his right hand ankle as he landed. After shedding an outer layer of clothing, Bundy limped through Aspen as roadblocks were being set up on its outskirts, then hiked south onto Aspen Mountain. Yes. Near its summit, he broke into a hunting cabin and stole food, clothing, and a rifle. The following day, Bundy left the cabin and continued south toward the town of Crested Butte, but became lost in the forest. Yeah. For 2 days, he wandered aimlessly on the mountain, missing 2 trails that led downward to his intended destination. On June 10th, Bundy broke into a camping trailer on Maroon Lake, 10 miles south of Aspen, taking food and a ski parka. However, instead of continuing south, he walked back north toward Aspen, eluding roadblocks and search parties. 3 days later, he stole a car at the edge of the Aspen golf course. Cold, sleep-deprived, and in constant pain from his sprained ankle, Bundy drove back into Aspen, where 2 police cars noticed his car weaving in and out of its lane and pulled him over. He'd been a fugitive for 6 days. In the car were maps of the mountain area around Aspen that prosecutors were using to demonstrate the location of Campbell's body, indicating his escape had been planned. Back in jail now in Glenwood Springs, Bundy ignored the advice of friends and legal advisors to stay put. By the way, this photo, sorry, audio podcast listeners, that I'm showing you, that's him after they captured him, after he'd been out and, nothing to eat and all that other stuff. Fishman says terrible things can happen when ladies nag their man's lack of ambition. Yeah, I guess so, because he did snap. The case against him, already weak at best, was deteriorating steadily as pretrial motions consistently resolved in Bundy's favor, and significant pieces of evidence were ruled inadmissible. A more rational defendant might have realized that he stood a good chance of acquittal, and that beating the murder charge in Colorado would probably have dissuaded other prosecutors. With as little as a year and a half to serve on the Durange conviction, had Ted just stayed there for that, he could have been a free man. Instead, he assembles a new escape plan. He acquired a detailed floor plan of the Garfield County Jail and a hacksaw blade from other inmates. He got $500 in cash, smuggled in over a 6-month period by visitors. His other girlfriend, Carol Boone in particular, during the evenings while other prisoners were showering, Bundy sawed a 1-foot square hole between the steel reinforcing bars in his cell's ceiling. He's lost 35 pounds while he's in jail, so he's able to wriggle through and explore the crawl space above. In the weeks that followed, multiple reports from an informant of movement within the ceiling weren't investigated. By late 1977, Bundy's trial made him really crazy popular, or at least well known in Aspen. So Bundy files a motion for a change of venue to Colorado Springs, where juries have been historically very hostile to murder suspects. On the night of December 30th, with most of the jail staff on Christmas break and the nonviolent prisoners on furlough with their families, Bundy piled a bunch of books and files in his bed, covered them with a blanket to make it look like he was sleeping, and climbs into that crawl space above him. He broke through the ceiling into the apartment of the chief jailer, who just happened to be out on the town with his wife, changed into street clothes from the jailer's closet, and walked out of the front door to freedom. After stealing a car, Bundy drove eastward out of Glenwood Springs, but the car soon broke down in the mountains on Interstate 70. Passing motorist gives him a ride into Vail, 60 miles to the east. From there, he catches a bus to Denver. Remember, he's got $500. Where he boards a morning flight to Chicago, takes a bus to Denver, gets on a plane to Chicago. Back at the jail, the skeleton crew there didn't discover the escape until noon the next day, 17 hours later. And by then, Bundy's in Chicago. They've lost. There's no way they're going to be able to track him from the stolen car to the guy he hitchhiked with, to the bus, to the plane. No way. None. By the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all the free things you can do to blah, blah, blah. Let's just say Alexis Denisoff is Ted's doppelganger, if you say. As long as she looked like she'd been electrocuted in 1989 in Florida. Zalipa said, nervy perp. You got that right. From Chicago, Bundy travels by train to Ann Arbor, Michigan, college town. Loves them college towns, where they know he was in a local tavern on January 2nd. 5 days later, he steals a car and he drives to Atlanta. From there, he gets on a bus and goes to Tallahassee, Florida. Arriving on the morning of January the 8th, he stays one night at a hotel before renting a room under the alias of Chris Hagen at a boarding house near Florida State University. He loves them college campuses, kids. Bundy later said he initially wanted to find legitimate employment and refrain from further criminal activity. Yeah. Knowing he could probably remain free and undetected in Florida indefinitely as long as he didn't attract the police's attention. But his lone job application at a construction site had to be abandoned because they wanted him to produce ID. So he reverts to his old habits of shoplifting and stealing money and credit cards from women's wallets left in shopping carts at local grocery stores. Yeah. That's what do we got here? Wanda says Tallahassee, where Dan Markle was murdered by the Adelsons, if you say so. Well, it was some of the Adelsons. I don't think they're ever going to prove that the wife had anything to do with that. And frankly, I don't know that she did. I think that mom and brother were just nutty. Hello, Zalipa, says the Wolf. People saying hi. We do have the most cheerful chat room on the internet, as verified by independent sources. In the early hours of January 15th, 1978, just a week after he got to Tallahassee, Bundy goes into Florida State University's Chi Omega sorority house through a rear door with a busted lock. Okay. Wanda says it was all Charlie and Donna. I agree with you. Beginning at about 2:45 in the morning, he bludgeoned Margaret Elizabeth Bowman, 21, with a piece of oak firewood as she slept. Then he strangles her with the nylon stocking. He then goes into the bedroom of 20-year-old Lisa Janet Levy and beats her unconscious, strangles her, tore one of her nipples, bit deeply into her left buttock, which was a big mistake, and beat her unconscious. Also did bad things to her with a hair mist bottle for some reason. In the adjoining bedroom, he attacked Kathy Kleiner, age 21, breaks her jaw, deeply lacerates her shoulder, and Karen Chandler, age 21, who suffered a concussion, broken jaw, loss of teeth, and a crushed finger. Now, Chandler and Kleiner survived the attack, and Kleiner attributed her survival to automobile headlights illuminating the interior of their room and frightening the attacker away. So he goes in there early morning, does away with 2 girls, and was going to do another 2, but got frightened away. Tallahassee detectives determined the 4 attacks took place in a total of less than 15 minutes within earshot of more than 30 witnesses who heard nothing. And that's because of his M.O. Knock them unconscious first. They didn't make any noise. After leaving the sorority house, Bundy broke into a basement apartment 8 blocks away and attacked 21-year-old FSU student Cheryl Thomas, dislocating her shoulder, fracturing her jaw and skull in 5 places. She was left with permanent deafness in her left ear and equilibrium damage that ended her dance career. On Thomas's bed, police found a man sauce stain and a pantyhose mask containing 2 hairs similar to Bundy's in class and characteristics. So that dude just couldn't get enough. You know, he is just a fun-loving gentleman, says the Wolf. He's very pleasant and good-natured, but pugnacious under the surface. On February 8th, Ted Bundy drove 150 miles east to Jacksonville in a stolen FSU van. He stole a van from the university. He just loved these universities. And I don't know what they're like now, but I think the Wolf can attest. In the 70s and 80s, universities were like the most laid back, no rules, just park it here, who cares? I mean, you could steal a van from a school. Dorms had big, heavy, if you locked them, you probably had a tough time getting into them. But off-campus apartments, most of the off-campus apartments I know of, you could break the door with a dirty look. In the parking lot of this place he went to in Jacksonville, he approached 14-year-old Leslie Parmenter, the daughter of the Jacksonville Police Department's chief of detectives, identifying himself as Richard Burton, fire department. Richard Burton? Really? Richard Burton, really? You're taking my name, Richard Burton. By the way, I know most of you probably don't really hear Richard Burton speak that much. That was an amazing Richard Burton imitation, and you should all be in awe right now. Uncle Fatty says, such a handsome man, like a rabid raccoon. Yeah. Richard Burton, fire department. But he retreated when Parmenter's older brother arrived and confronted him. That afternoon, he backtracked 60 miles westward to Lake City, Florida. At Lake City Junior High School the following morning, 12-year-old Kimberly Diane Leach was summoned to her homeroom by a teacher to retrieve a forgotten purse, and she never returned to class. 7 weeks later, after an intensive search, her partially mummified remains were found in a pig shed in Sewanee River State Park, 35 miles northwest of Lake City. Forensic experts surmised that Leach had been SA'd before having her throat cut and parts of her mutilated with a knife. On February 12th, with insufficient cash to pay his overdue rent and a growing suspicion that police were closing in on him, Bundy stole a car and fled Tallahassee, driving westward across the Florida Panhandle. 3 days later, at around 1 a.m., he was stopped by Pensacola police officer David Lee near the Alabama state line after a wants and warrants check showed his Volkswagen Beetle was stolen. And he really liked those Beetles, didn't he? He really dug those. This is Susquehanna River State Park, where Kimberly Leach was found. We'll just leave that up there. It's pastoral. When told he was under arrest, Bundy kicked Lee's legs out from underneath him and took off running. Lee fired 2 warning shots, then gave chase and tackled him. The two struggled over Lee's gun before the officer finally subdued and arrested Bundy. He was fighting hard. He did not want to go to where he knew he was going, especially in Florida, where death row isn't a joke. In the stolen vehicle, there were 3 sets of IDs belonging to female FSU students, 21 stolen credit cards, and a stolen television set. Also found were a pair of dark-rimmed non-prescription glasses, a pair of plaid socks, later identified as the disguise worn by Richard Burton Fire Department in Jacksonville. Damn it, that is an incredible Richard Burton. Keys are in it, ma'am, says Uncle Fatty. As Lee transported the suspect to jail, unaware he just arrested one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives, he heard Bundy say, "I wish you'd killed me." In May of 1978, a Florida grand jury indicted Bundy on charges of first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and burglary for the Chi Omega killings and assaults. He stood trial in June of 1979 in the Florida Circuit Court for Dade County, with Judge Edward Cowart presiding. The trial was covered by 250 reporters from 5 continents and was the first to be televised nationally in the United States. Despite the presence of 5 court-appointed attorneys, Bundy again handled much of his own defense. From the beginning, he sabotaged the entire defense effort out of spite, distrust, and grandiose delusion. One of the other attorneys later wrote, Ted was facing murder charges with a possible death sentence, and all that mattered to him was that he was in charge. According to a Tallahassee public defender and member of the defense team, a pretrial plea bargain was negotiated in which Bundy would plead guilty to killing Levy, Bowman, and Leach in exchange for a firm 75-year prison sentence. Prosecutors were amenable to the deal because the prospects of losing at trial were very good. Bundy, on the other hand, saw the plea bargain not only as a means of avoiding the death penalty, but also a tactical move. He could enter his plea, then wait a few years for evidence to disintegrate, or become lost, or for witnesses to pass away or move away or change their testimony. Once the case against him had deteriorated beyond repair, he could file a post-conviction motion and get an acquittal. At the last minute, though, Bundy refused the deal. The reason was he was going to have to stand up in front of the whole world and say he was guilty, and he just couldn't do it. At the trial, crucial testimony came from Chi Omega sorority members Connie Hastings, who placed Bundy in vicinity of the sorority house that evening, and Nita Neary, who saw him leaving the house clutching the murder weapon. Incriminating physical evidence included impressions of the bite wound that Bundy had left on Levy's left buttock, which forensic orthodontists matched to casings of Bundy's teeth. The jury was also allowed to hear details of Duranche's previous kidnapping and finally deliberated for less than 7 hours before convicting Bundy of the Bowman and Levy murders, 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder for the assaults on Kleiner, Chandler, and Thomas, and 2 counts of burglary. Trial Judge Edward Cowart imposed death sentences for the murder convictions. Bundy appealed his convictions and death sentences to the Supreme Court of Florida, but it said no thanks. 6 months later, a second trial took place in Orlando for the abduction and murder of Leach. Bundy was found guilty once again after less than 8 hours of deliberation. During the penalty phase of the Leach trial, Bundy took advantage of an obscure Florida law providing that a marriage declaration in court in the presence of a judge constituted a legal marriage. As he was questioning Boone, that one girlfriend he had who had moved to Florida to be near him and had testified on his behalf in both trials and was doing so again as a character witness, he asked her to marry him. She accepted, and he declared to the court that they were legally married. On February 10, 1980, Bundy was sentenced for a third time to death. As the sentence was announced, he reportedly stood and shouted, "Tell the jury they were wrong." This third death sentence would be the one ultimately carried out nearly 9 years later. Only his mother would appear before the court to beg for mercy. On October 24, 1981, his wife, Boone, gave birth to a daughter, Rose Bundy. While conjugal visits were not allowed at the Florida State Prison, where he was incarcerated, inmates were known to pool their money to bribe guards to allow them intimate time alone with visitors. Which is, Zalipa says, a great Richard Burton. Thank you, Zalipa. Thank you, Zalipa. I appreciate it. Wolf says, he's a teleholic, must have a TV at all times. But he was probably... he's such an egotistical, he probably wanted to watch reports of himself, of them tracking him down. Warfield said, I got grabbed by J.W. Pepper on the whole damn river. Shortly after the conclusion of the Leach trial and the beginning of the long appeals process that followed, Bundy initiated a series of interviews with his 2 biographers, speaking mostly in third person. Mostly in the third person to avoid being humiliated by a confession. He couldn't handle that. He began for the first time to divulge details of his crimes and his thought process. Incidentally, there's a bunch of this you can see on YouTube. They videotaped him, and he's nutty as a fruitcake. But he speaks rationally. He's not like Manson. He's like, I'm the ear of a fly and the eye of a dragon, Jack. None of that. He's telling you. Yep, he proposed in court. One of his judges said, in a different world, I could see you having practiced in front of me. Because he was apparently very good when he was defending himself. And then he says, so long, Hoss. He was like, yeah, you're going to die now. The judge was like, see you later, Hoss. He recounted his career as a thief, confirming Klepfer's longtime suspicion he had shoplifted virtually everything of substance that he owned. Bundy said, the big payoff for me was actually possessing whatever I had stolen. I really enjoyed having something that I had wanted and gone out and taken. Possession proved to be an important motive for the SA and the killings. The SA, he said, fulfilled his need to totally possess his victims. And at first, he unalived people as a matter of expediency to eliminate the possibility of being caught. But later, he said it became part of the adventure. The ultimate possession was the acquisition of a life and the physical possession of the remains. He really got into that. He also confided in Special Agent William Hagemeyer of the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit. And Hagemeyer was struck by the deep, almost mystical satisfaction that Bundy took in unaliving. He said these people become part of you. The victim becomes part of you, and you're forever one. And the grounds where you unalive them or leave them become sacred, and you'll always be drawn back. Bundy told this man that he considered himself to be an amateur, impulsive killer in his early years before moving on to what he termed his prime phase. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me see here. He was kind of a misguided winner in a weird way, says Rich Draft. I guess. Third-person confessions. Yes, Zalipa. Whoa, people in the Dabbleverse like the word hoss. Don't look at me. That's just what the guy said. The Dabbleverse is the least redeeming thing on earth. And my only regret is that I will probably not have an opportunity in the Dabbleverse to tell the people in the Dabbleverse just what I think of how useless that pursuit is. And now that Stuttering John has disappeared, I can see people, grifter shifters, shifting on to other people that they are targeting to make into another Stuttering John for financial purposes. And there's a few people that I really like and think are talented that I guess need the money or want the money so badly that they just keep going hip deep into that. And the only distinction I would make between myself and those people is that I can't look myself in the mirror. As bad as this show is and as few people that watch it, I can at least say, hey, I enjoyed that. And I'm not embarrassed for having done it. I don't see how you could be embarrassed if your kid or somebody you didn't know say, are you the one that just, that's your thing? It's just making fun of people that can't defend themselves and that are laughing stocks to begin with. That's it. That's your thing. That's, I was in junior high. I quit doing that in junior high. I went on to other things. But he's gone now, so they're trying to find other people. It's got to keep that. All right. If you need the money that bad, I guess, it is, and it's not even, maybe some of the people on the shows, but the people that follow it, it's like, what are you doing? Are you becoming famous in that chat room? Are you, Tom knows where it's at when it comes to the Dabbleverse. He knows it needs to be flushed. Well, it's just, and the people that come into the Dabbleverse that they worship, like Mersh, he came in and, he's great. He's the greatest. No, he's not. And you can't see that. The Dabbleverse, as long as you don't like the same people they don't like, you're awesome. No, you're not. That is like fourth graders do that, and chicks. Anyway. Let's get back to Ted Bundy. In 1984, in July, prison guards, get this. Prison guards found 2 hacksaw blades hidden in Bundy's cell. Go figure. A steel bar in one of the cell's windows had been sawed completely through. At the top and at the bottom, and glued back into place with a homemade soap-based adhesive. Several months later, Bundy was moved to a different cell after guards found an unauthorized mirror. Shortly thereafter, he was charged with a disciplinary infraction for unauthorized correspondence with, John Hinckley Jr. there. The guy who tried to kill Ronald Reagan. Jesus said to love all others, yeah? Yeah, Jesus knew about the dabble verse. He wouldn't say that. In October of 1984, Bundy contacted one of the investigators and offered to share his self-proclaimed expertise in the serial killer psychology in the ongoing hunt in Washington for the Green River Killer, later, of course, identified as the lovely and talented Gary Ridgway. Yeah. Who has permanent resting, just smelled fart face. He's still around, by the way, is Gary Ridgway. The Green River Task Force detectives Keppel and then Dave Reichert interviewed Bundy, but Ridgway remained at large for a further 17 years. Keppel published a detailed documentation of the Green River interviews and later collaborated with Michaud, one of the biographers, on another examination of the interview material. I think that's the stuff, a lot of it, that you can see on YouTube. Being your true self ain't great for everyone. Roy Cohn tactics. I don't know what you're referring to. You mean just continually admitting your innocence, no matter how much evidence? In early 1986, an execution date of March 4th was set on the Chi Omega convictions. The United States Supreme Court issued a brief stay. Hey, check out the United States Supreme Court, Daddy-O. This is the current court. I couldn't find one of the 1986 court. I probably could have if I'd have looked hard enough, but this one was more available, and I just said, oh, it's a Supreme Court. Anyway, they issued a brief stay, but the execution was quickly rescheduled. In April, shortly after the new execution date of July 2nd was announced, Bundy finally convinced to Hagemeyer and Nelson what they believed was the full range of his evil doings, including details of what he did to some of the victims after their deaths, which is really gross. He told them that he revisited Taylor Mountain, Issaquah, and other secondary crime scenes, often several times, to lie down next to his victims and performed the act of physical love with their bodies until the extreme decay or putrefaction of the bodies forced him to stop. It's basically totally broken down decay after pallor mortis, liver mortis, algor mortis, and rigor mortis. After all the mortises, in some cases, he drove several hours each way and remained the entire night. In Utah, he applied makeup to a lifeless face and repeatedly washed one of his victims' hair. If you've got time, he told Hagemeyer, they can be anything you want them to be. Bundy decapitated 12 of his victims with a hacksaw, and he kept a group of the heads, probably the 4 found on Taylor Mountain, Rancourt Parks, Ball, and Healy. He kept those in his apartment for a period of time before disposing of them. Less than 15 hours before the scheduled July 2nd execution. And I remember when this was going on. They kept having to extend it. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th District stayed that execution indefinitely and remanded the Chi Omega case back to the Southern District of Florida due to legal issues, including Bundy's mental competency to stand trial, which is like crazy because he was extremely competent, and an erroneous instruction by the trial judge during the penalty phase. Those were never resolved. A new date was then set to carry out the Leach sentence, November 18th. The 11th Circuit Court issued a stay on the 17th. Mid-1988, the 11th Circuit Court ruled against Bundy, and in December, the Supreme Court denied a motion to review the ruling. Over the dissent, actually, there were dissents of Thurgood Marshall and Justice William Brennan Jr. Within hours of that final denial, a firm execution date of January 4th, 1989 was announced. Bundy's journey through the appellate courts has been unusually rapid for a capital murder case. With all appeals exhausted and no further motivation to deny his crimes, Bundy agreed to speak frankly with the investigators. He confessed he had committed all 8 of the Washington and Oregon homicides to which he was the prime suspect. He described 3 additional previously unknown victims in Washington and 2 in Oregon, who he declined to identify, if indeed he ever knew their identities. He said he left a 5th corpse on Taylor Mountain, but incinerated her head in Klupfer, that woman with the small girl Molly, in her fireplace. He described the Issaquah crime scene where the bones of Ott, Naslund, and Hoskin were found as almost like it was like he was just there, like he was seeing everything. He was infatuated with the idea because he spent so much time there. Investigators said he's totally consumed with murder all the time. Bundy confessed to detectives from Idaho, Utah, and Colorado that he had committed numerous additional homicides, including several that were unknown to the police. He explained that when he was in Utah, he could bring his victims back to his apartment where he could reenact scenarios depicted on the covers of detective magazines. I told you this guy was awful. I really did. A new ulterior strategy quickly became apparent. He withheld many details, hoping to parlay the incomplete information into yet another stay of execution. Despite warnings from his appellate attorneys that the spectacle of peddling information for time would turn the courts against Bundy, he began offering investigators piecemeal information regarding some of his murders, and that was part of the problem. The courts did not take kindly to, and by the way, I killed a ton more ladies. Let me just dole out in little pieces the details. The new strategy, immediately dubbed Ted's Bones for Time scheme, served only to deepen the resolve of authorities to see him executed on schedule and yielded little detailed information. In cases where he did give details, many times nothing was found. When it became clear that no further stays would be forthcoming from the courts, Bundy supporters began lobbying their only remaining option, which was executive clemency. In other words, a call from the governor. Diana Weiner, a young Florida attorney and Bundy's last purported love interest, which is just gross, asked families of several Colorado and Utah victims to petition Florida Governor Bob Martinez for a postponement to give Bundy time to reveal more information. Hey, guess what? When you went to all the families of the Colorado and Utah victims to say, hey, could you write some they all refused. The families already believed that the victims were dead and that Ted had killed them, wrote Nelson. They didn't need his confession. Martinez made it clear he would not agree to further delays in any case. We're not going to have the system manipulated, he told reporters. For him to be negotiating for his life over the bodies of victims is despicable. His wife, Boone, had championed Bundy's innocence throughout all his trials and felt deeply betrayed by his admission that he was, in fact, guilty. Yeah. So she moved back to Washington with her daughter and refused to accept his phone call on the morning of his execution. And she wasn't too crazy about his relationship with Diana Weiner. Yeah. On the eve of his execution, he talked of unaliving himself. He didn't want to give the state the satisfaction of watching him die. He declined a last meal. He was executed in the electric chair at the Florida State Prison in Railford at 7:16 a.m., January 24th, 1989, at the age of 42. His last words were addressed to his attorney, Jim Coleman, and to Methodist minister Fred Lawrence. Jim and Fred, I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends. Earlier that morning, he was permitted 2 telephone calls to his mother, during which he apologized, saying, "I'm so sorry I've given you all such grief, but pardon of me was hidden all the time." Several hundred people gathered in a pasture across from the prison where they sang, danced, and set off fireworks as the execution was carried out, and they cheered as the white hearse transporting his body left the facility. He was cremated in Gainesville, and in accordance with his will, his ashes were scattered in an undisclosed location in the Cascade Range in Washington State. I forget why I have this Goodwill picture. I think he discarded some of his murder stuff in that Goodwill bin. There's one of his FBI interviewers. There's Levy and Bowman, who were attacked, and there's another of the ladies that were attacked at Chi Omega. These are just some films here and things that I'm not going to go through his MO or his pathology. There's a lot there, or his confirmed victims, other than to say 11 victims in Washington, 8 in Utah, 3 in Colorado, 3 in Florida, 2 in Oregon, 2 in Idaho, 1 in California. And those are the ones that we know of. And then there's a ton of unconfirmed ones. And you can look those up. There's a ton of unconfirmed ones. So there's Ted Bundy. It's a movie. There's extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile Zac Efron plays Ted Bundy, because he's good looking, and Bundy was a good looking cut. Old Sparky finally got him. You're right about that, Wolf. Sleeper says he was always grinning, or whatever the rest of that RTKing. I don't know what that means. I'm not smart. Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. He's played by Chad Michael Murray. And then there's a movie called No Man of God, where Elijah Wood Elijah Wood, I think, plays a guy that's interviewing him. That movie is an extended interview. And it's based on transcripts from conversations between Ted Bundy and Special Agent Bill Hagemeyer. Elijah Wood plays Bill Hagemeyer. He plays the cop. Luke Kirby plays Bundy in that one. I've seen that one. It's actually not too shabby. It's a pretty good movie. It's actually a pretty good movie. As your Ted Bundy evil killer movies go, it's not a bad one, really. Anyway, that's all I got. I put the link up. I did a show on a Saturday. I missed a whole World Cup match, thank you, doing this, and nobody wants to come on the show. That's, I mean, I'm sure there are people that want to come on the show, but those would be the people that I really don't want to have on the show. So I'm sure many people that I don't want on the show would love to be on the show, but they're not going to be on the show. No, they're not. Shame on them. Why would they even think such a thing? That's ridiculous. I burned up a whole bunch of my StreamYard time and everything else. So anyway, that's what we got on Ted Bundy. That's a long show, kids. That's 2.5 hours about Ted Bundy. That's a longie. Like who? Sorry, don't know anybody by that name. Scott. You mean like Scott tissues? Toilet paper? Things you would wipe your rear end with? That makes a little sense. I am so hungry right now. Yeah, that's funny, Wanda. That's real funny. Real funny. It's a laugh riot. Hope he falls into a sausage maker and tastes his own blood. All right. I have to get on out of here. Come on. You guys just don't get it. You've been a child for so freaking long, and doing your little grade school crap, you don't get it. You don't get it. That's okay. All you people with fake names and backgrounds you can't check that have never accomplished a damn thing in their life and are never gonna, ever, when you start getting a little older and seeing just how trashed a life you have and wonder why, cool. But you don't get it, and you're never gonna. Oh, wait, the wolf's here. See, I was just about to leave. Did I mention I'm starving to death? Hey, Wolf, what's going on?
Hello there, Mr. Brown.
Yeah. Another good show. Have you done one on classic cars? I've done some on some cars. I can't remember which ones, but what are you up to?
My normal nonsense.
Yeah. And by the way, all these nameless faces that are the lionest people you'd ever want to meet. And boy, if there's one thing I love, it's people that lie. That's something that I really have always admired. People that can't tell the truth. Love that. That lie for amusement. Oh, those are wonderful people. Hey, did you happen to see about the USA? And then this guy says criticism of their ambition might not be the correct move. Well, Fishman, since you're illiterate, I didn't criticize their ambition. We all have ambition. I criticized their accomplishments. Two different things, actual accomplishments. Ambition's easy to have. Accomplishments are difficult, as they will find out. So anyway.
I saw a short that was going over the victory. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they beat the tar out of them. Beat the tar out of them. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a big party. It looked like a P bar. And outside the parking lot, just wall fans.
What's a PB bar?
Cheering. Pacific Beach.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Some of us don't live in San Diego, so I was like peanut butter, the peanut butter bar. Yeah, they beat the snot out of them. It was a wonderful thing. I'm already sick and tired, and I don't know how much time you spent on Facebook. I'm already sick and tired of all these British people that have come over here and are just, well, you can't walk from your hotel to the stadium. No, you really can't walk from a hotel to MetLife Stadium. That's not, they just piss and moan and complain about everything. Oh, I wanted a pint and it was $18. Yeah, guess what? Here in the United States, we a long time ago decided getting hopelessly smashed at a sporting event, you can do it, but it's going to cost you. Get smashed before you show up. And haven't you heard of Uber? You can Uber to the where the train is like, $34 to get from New York to New Jersey. Yeah, depending on where you're going. What the hell? They just bitch and complain about everything. And like I said, when we go to Europe, we go to the Louvre or Big Ben or the Eiffel Tower or the Colosseum. When they come here, they go to Taco Bell and Chick-fil-A. And then, oh, have you had the biscuits and gravy at Waffle House? Oh, it's so delicious. It's like, it's just what we got here. You guys always making fun of us for being fat. That's because we have good food. We don't have leprechaun's face pie and dandelion salad and shit. Anyway.
Ringworm sandwiches.
Yeah, we have a ringworm sandwich. We ain't got no ringworm sandwich. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, that Ted Bundy. What a great guy.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing. He doesn't, maybe it's because of the looks, but everybody goes crazy about Charles Manson. Charles Manson, I think, was involved in the killing of one person. Actually there or did something. The rest of it, he just told people to go. Everybody was dead at La Bianca when he came in there. He was never, he's accessory to murder, sure. But they think he's the worst, most vile. And it's like, have you looked into Ted Bundy?
Any of those, Richard Speck.
Yeah, well, Richard Speck. Well,
Albert Fish.
Oh, yes, Albert Fish. Jesus. Albert Fish used to like to stick things in his own body. Yeah, I mean, what was the other one? Well, Richard Speck, first of all, everything he did when he was in prison was so off the charts weird. But
you mean like pretending to be a woman?
Yes, and all that. But and videotaping a lot of that stuff and conversations with people. But Dandelion, also known as, I don't know what that means. But anyway, his thing was he just got all those girls that were trapped in the same room. It wasn't like he was out killing people all the time. I think he got really hammered one night and went in there and just, Ed Kemper, again, there's another thing where people are the gray man. Good Lord. Ed Kemper was one of those guys, and all these dudes have, go figure, really bad childhoods. Their mom used to bring guys home and make them sleep in a cardboard box at the end of the bed, and whatever it was. It was
with the exception of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Let's see here.
Allegedly nice parents.
Zalipa, yes. Richard Speck tried to grow boobs, or did actually. I think he got injections and stuff. Wanda says, why wasn't Ted Bundy portrayed on Mindhunter? I don't know. I'm not in charge of that, but I do know they might have just said, hey, let's maybe not give anybody any ideas. They all had bad childhood and severe head wounds, says Go. Well, a lot of them did have big frontal lobe trauma. Kicked by a mule, who knows? What was that one? Otis Toole. Down in the South, they couldn't even figure out how many.
Yeah.
What would you do if somebody you
killed 85 people?
Yeah. What would you do if somebody you actually knew? Then all of a sudden, like that Ann Rule, she's first of all, former police officer. She joins the unaliving hotline volunteer thing, and Bundy's right at the next desk, and they're answering phone calls and whatever that. And he isn't in the middle of a big spree or anything, but then later on you find out, oh, wow, that guy's knocking off a girl every month.
Yeah. Nice working next to an axe murderer.
I remember one time I had, it was a buddy of one of my brothers. And one time when I lived off campus at Ball State, this buddy, my brother, helped me bring a bunch of stuff up to school and unload it where I was staying off campus. And his buddy came with. And I got him beers and stuff, and they hung out. I don't remember. They might have spent the night, and then they went back home. And then 5 or 6 years later, one of Ball State's basketball players asked me to play on this basketball team. And it's all Indiana high school all-stars, Division I basketball players. 2 of them played in the NBA, and me. And we start playing these prisons We played up at Putnamville. We played, where else did we play? Pendleton. Played at Pendleton. And we played at Plainfield. So we go down to Plainfield and we're playing. And I'm sitting there and warming up. And all of a sudden, my brother's buddy walks a little bit out of the stands and goes, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And I'm just like, "What the hell? What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I wrote a few bad checks." And I'm thinking, you must have wrote a lot of bad checks, brother, to be in here. It was weird. Let's see here. They lost Speck's brain in transit for further study. Just lost it. You lose a brain. Wait, I got it. He's his own grandson. Ted's his own grandson. Yes, he's his own uncle. That's for sure.
You remember that teacher that had a bunch of kids bump her husband off? It was like one of the first times that was ever a big thing. And they made a movie about it. Well, I worked with the brother that was also going to that school, and he remembers her asking him to participate.
Well, I just remember when that happened. I'm like, if hot chicks start recruiting 16-year-old boys to kill people, we're all dead. Well, I mean, we are all dead, because when you're a 16-year-old boy, you will do anything. I mean, anything. I do. Do you remember the?
I remember.
Do you remember at the London Center, Ball State's London Center, that professor? He and his wife went over there, and she was either mysteriously killed or mysteriously disappeared. And they kept trying to prove that he did it. And kept trying to prove that he did it. And I don't know that they ever did. Let's see here. Ball State, London Center. Whoops. Boy, that was a big dream always, is to go to the London Center.
It's weird when stuff like that happens. People you know or have been around. There was the Beasley boys. Like three brothers, and the youngest one, just a really nice kid that I spoke to all the time in high school. And it turns out that they killed this girl that lived like three houses down from my friend Terry. They strangled her and shocked her.
The Beasley boys.
Yeah, they were
the Beasley boys.
Something special.
Well, do you remember those three kids in Carmel that Kofi Ajabu's kid went up there with two others and killed them all? Over and they all they did was like rob them of a PlayStation or some video game and some stuff. It was a girl and two guys, and they met him somehow online or something. This is in the mid-90s. And now they're trying to get that guy out so hard because his dad's a big activist and stuff. And it's like, no, they cut that poor girl's throat. And they stole nothing. Trash. Just went up there and from, going to show everybody who's bad. Okay, so January 1984, Dr. Jerry Kasparek, the director of the Ball State University London Center, killed his wife, Carola Ann Kasparek, at their rented apartment in central London. He was arrested, tried, and ultimately convicted of the lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter. In December of 1984, a London jury at the Old Bailey delivered a 10-2 verdict, and he was sentenced. Was there at the Old Bailey.
He got the black spot.
He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. The case drew significant attention at the time, not least because the couple's 2 teenage daughters were in the home at the time of the incident and spoke to their father before he called the ambulance. Wow. Wonder what he's up to today.
There was a guy that I competed with. Was Marine, and his wife basically shot him in the face with a shotgun in front of their two little kids. And she was a evil piece of work. I had words with her at a show. Little kids were hungry and were asking her for something to eat. She starts yelling. I said, "Excuse me, they're just hungry." She looked at me and then she gave them something to eat. Well, initially, she got off with self-defense. And I told my other friend who was friends with him and was angry about the decision to let her go. That I said, yeah. She was waiting on him when he came in, and she got life. She tried it. She got life.
Man, wow. Well, you remember the? I won't say his real name, but you remember the assassin, right? I don't want to say his name. I want to use his real name. He's no longer with us, so I guess I could use his name. But he had relations with a gal on the judge's bench of a county courtroom, and while he was a military lawyer, a JAG lawyer, and that is against the military code of justice because he was married at the time.
Oh yeah.
And so he went to Leavenworth.
Time to break up rocks.
And and so he would call me from Leavenworth all the time. But because he was a lawyer, he was everybody's friend, because it wasn't like he was a jailhouse lawyer. No, he was a lawyer. Just 3 years, Zalipa. Rich Drabs has got to run. Thanks for an often show. Hey, anytime. See you, Rich. So he was everybody's friend. Now, he got parole. And they said, look, part of your parole is you can't because he thought he was unfairly convicted. And they said, part of your parole is you can't contact anybody, or you have to go back in here for another, I don't know, it was 8 months or what it was. And I'll be damned if he didn't. And I remember telling him, dude, you better not be calling them people and doing that stuff. And again, oh, no, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. No, he didn't. He ended up having to go back in. Serve the rest of his time. Dummy. That's my friends.
That people who commit serious crimes don't do a lot of time. The ones minor ones do like twice their time.
Yeah. Well, it's like Charles Manson. He kept committing federal crimes. He would get a car and steal it and then drive it over state lines. Well, then that's a federal crime now. And he kept doing federal crimes. So Spawn, for some reason, says Echo. No idea why. Probably shouldn't have even read it. But anyway, Wolf, the World Cup, it's going to inundate you for the next 6 weeks. All these Brits coming over here complaining like crazy. Now, the Scottish people, they're partying. They aren't complaining about a damn thing. Where's the beer? Let's go. The Dutch, oh my God, the Dutch are just having a hell of a time. But the British, you're hearing an echo when the guest talks? Is that you're just hearing an echo, or there is an echo? Here, let me see if I can fix that. No, you're not hearing an echo when they talk. Wolf has an echo. Well, I've got the echo cancellation on. What the hell? He can't.
It's just my powerful man voice.
He can't have an echo. I've got the echo cancellation on. What the hell? Why the hell has he got an echo? I don't have any other. Oh, wait a minute. Well, he's just going to have an echo because I can't figure out how to turn the damn thing off.
I still had the YouTube online, and I just shut it off.
Oh, that probably is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So the Dutch are having a hell of a time. The Germans are having a hell of a time. But the British are just, they don't have a close trolley to get to the stadium. It's like everything's so expensive. It's like, what do you mean so expensive? This is the price we pay over here.
They just want sausages.
Yeah. They don't have meat pies outside the...
sausages.
Yeah, they don't have meat pies outside the stadium. Oh, they don't do this and they don't do that. They've broken the game up into quarters because there's hydration breaks. There's been hydration breaks at the World Cup since 2014. You guys need to quit your complaining. Put your big boy panties on. You're going to party in the United States. This is the way it goes. And until you can beat us in a World Cup, you need to shut up. I don't want to hear about, they'll be lucky to get out of their group. They're not a footballing nation. For not a footballing nation, we've played you 3 times and you're still waiting for your first win. And we've beaten you. We're 1 win and 2 draws. You can't. The last time we played back in 2022, was it 2022? Yeah, it was 2022. All we heard was about how you were going to dismantle us and your players were so good and you had a golden generation and, you were so great. And what happened? 0-0. We just went, okay, well, we're just going to put you in a headlock for 90 minutes. That's what we did. So,
we'll have some tea and some crumpets with clotted cream and enjoy the match.
And some crisps. We'll get a packet of crisps.
Crisps.
You mean some potato chips? Is that what you're talking about? Some pommes frites. Some chips.
Biscuits instead of cookies.
Yeah, Jesus. Just shut up. There's a guy that was on one of the big networks over in England called TalkSport, and he was American, and one of them started, a guy there was like, so what about the men? And this guy just lost it. He's a black dude. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm sick of it. Quit your complaining, all right? He just, how come when you got empty seats at Man City for an FA Cup final, nobody says anything? And your stadiums are so quiet. You got all these people cherry picking these little things. Go to a Clemson match and watch them come out to Enter Sandman and watch that place go crazy. You guys think you got these intimidating stadiums? Our college football stadiums, you'd be scared, you'd run and leave. And then you pick some high school stadium with 50 people at it and go, look at theirs. No. Even our baseball stadiums during the World Series are crazy. You just stop it. And he's like, well, let's not take a broadside at the British. He's like, no, I'm sick of all you guys over here talking this crap. It's great. It's great. Absolutely great. Yeah, but I don't know when they play first. There's 4 games on today. I'm going to be missing one in 12 minutes.
Well, I'll let you go. I'm going to do something like make yogurt or something like that.
Well, what's the latest thing you've made? I'm starving. I haven't really eaten today. Hell, it's almost 4 o'clock. I had a little something this morning, and I literally am about to chew my arm off. I always it was a couple weeks ago. I was eating a little bit before the show. Bad idea. It's always better if I'm hungry during the show. And so now at the end of the show, I'm just ravenous. And
I'm gonna have some chicken strips with a special hot sauce.
Oh man, that sounds good. Jeez. Anyway, well, hey, thanks for dropping on in. I appreciate it. I need to do a.
Thanks for having me, Daddy.
Did you have a nice birthday?
A bush, baby.
I gotta do a StreamYard show once a week. I decided, just because. But this is a long ass show. This one, 3 hours. Jesus.
That's because Ted Bundy's such a great guy.
Oh, well, you got to go through 30 people. People don't realize, they think, oh, Ted Bundy, just a couple girls here and there. No. He just, and all the ladies, he's so good looking. I'm like, look, I'm no judge of male beauty. I'm not, but he's not that good looking. I mean,
He's a handsome road.
Which, I mean, look, I understand I'm not good looking, but I can't fathom anybody that's so good looking you'd get in a car with them without knowing them. Of course, it was the mid-'70s. It was a different time.
Wasn't he wearing like a cast and like he was hurt?
He did. He did, but he eventually, some of them get him to, would you mind? I only live a couple blocks away. Would you? And they'd get in the car with him.
Yeah,
he's so dreamy. But the one girl, the girl that set it all off, I'm convinced of this, the girl that set it off, that he really was totally in love with, that just dropped him like a hot potato. Because he was studying Chinese at the University of Washington, and she didn't think he was ambitious.
He was studying
Chinese. Yeah, he studied Chinese at 2 different places. Matter of fact, he got a scholarship to study Chinese at Stanford. And she drops him like a hot potato. And he was totally in love with her. She's from this nice family and all this. And so then he enters law school, starts kicking ass in law school, starts working on Nelson Rockefeller's campaign, becomes the driver and assistant for the guy that was running for lieutenant governor of Washington State, then becomes the chief aide for the Washington State Republican Party, then becomes like the head of some department, for the assistant of the emergency services department or some department for the governor of the state of Washington. Now he goes and sees her, and she's like, whoa, he's going to be a lawyer. He's up in politics and stuff. He'll probably be a power broker someday. So he starts seeing her again. She's flying from California up to Seattle to do the nasty with him. And now she's really into him. And all of a sudden he drops her and never speaks to her again.
Had to get even.
And that's what he was doing. And so she calls him, finally gets a hold of him one time. And she's like, well, why aren't you calling me? You haven't answered any of my letters or my calls. And he said in a very calm, flat voice, I have no idea what you mean, Diane. And then hangs up on her and never speaks to her again. And it even says, I think he was just doing all those things and currying favor with me so he could drop me like a hot potato. And it's like, oh, you think? If you were a guy, you wouldn't have to wonder about that. You'd know that he, for a fact, entered law school, started studying to get law school, did all these things. Nelson Rockefeller, the lieutenant governor, the governor, all that. Yeah, he did all that stuff just so he could one day go, there you go. Now you know how it feels.
It probably listed hobbies on his resume and say spree killer.
Zalipa says he killed her again and again. Yep, and all the girls he killed looked exactly like her. Straight hair, parted in the middle, the whole, anyway. All right, man. Well, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. I gotta get some sleep.
Thanks for inviting me on.
Anytime.
Good night, Daddy.
See you later. That's the wolf. He's legendary. He's a legend. Anyway, that's all we got time for. I got to get out of here. I don't know what tomorrow's show is going to be about yet. I don't know. I can't tell you. It'll be about something good, though. That I do know. It'll be about something nifty. Thank you all for being here. And with all that being said, I got to play this song. And the only thing really left to say is, thank you guys for being here. You guys are the best. Till next time. We'll see you next time.
Tom Gulley's here. G-U-L-L-E-Y. He's here to stay. G-U-L-L-E-Y. The Golly guarantee. That's what the people need. We're all here to see Tom Gulley. G-U-L-L-E-Y. G-U-L-L-E-Y. Tom Gulley's here. G-U-L-L-E-Y. He's here to stay. The lights are low, so start the show. Tom's here to go.